Welcome to the Season 7 compilation of the Quest Lore series, where I complete most of the Grandmaster and Master quests of the game, and also complete most of the best storylines that the game has to offer. In search of the Myreque. To start this quest you must have completed the Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril and Nature Spirit. You talk to Van Strom Klaus in the Canifist pub, who mentions a group of rebels called the Myreque. He wants to deliver them some steel weapons, but as they're hiding in the Mortmire swamp, he can't find them. You ask which weapons he wanted to deliver and say that you'll go on his behalf. The boatman might know where they are. Cyreg Paddlehorn explains that the Dracons are the family of vampires to whom every human in Mauritania owes blood tithes. Unfortunately, Saradomin's presence has been lost in this land east of the River Salve. You continue to prod Cyreg for more information until eventually he tells you that they're hiding upstream. 3 wooden planks fix his boat and you sail up the river. 3 more planks fix the bridge, and at the Hollows, Kerpal Fjord asks you a few questions to see if he can trust you with delivering the weapons. You know that the leader is Veliav Hertz, that the youngest member is Ivan Strom, and that the member who was originally a scholar is Paul Maffey Ferdigris. You find some wooden doors and go in. In an alcove you find a little cave entrance. The members of the Myreque are originally suspect of you, but know that you wouldn't be here if Kerpal Fjord didn't make his checks first. Veliav says you are free to introduce yourself to the others. Harold Evans used to be in the military. Radagad Ponfit used to be a mercenary. Sani Piliu was only 9 years old when vampires ripped her family to pieces. Paul Maffey Ferdigris was educated as a scholar. Lastly, Ivan Strom was trained as a priest. Whilst talking to everyone, you also learned that the plan is to get rid of the vampires by defeating Loernial Draken. Veliav Her says Calcidial ranks above him. Now that you've introduced yourself to everyone, you give Veliav the 6 steel weapons. At this moment, Van Strom Klaus appears and reveals that he's actually a vampire and used you to find and kill the Myreque. He releases a skeleton hellhound and then disappears. After you defeat the hound, Veliav explains that vampires can shapeshift to look like humans. He tells you about a shortcut that exists with the stone wall, which will lead right into the basement of the Hair of the Dog Tavern. He'd also like you to come back, as a Myreque could use someone like you. But as for now, he wants you to check if Van Strom is still at the pub. Van Strom might think that the Myreque are all dead, giving them somewhat of an advantage. You push the stone wall and go up the ladder, making it outside the pub. Van Strom Klaus is no longer sitting in the chair, now it's just a stranger. Quest complete. Completing this quest is a requirement for In Aid of the Myreque. To start this quest you must have completed the Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Nature Spirit and In Search of the Myreque. At the Myreque hideout you update Veliav Hertz by saying that Van Strom Klaus is no longer at the tavern. The Myreque are going to relocate as the Firewatch now know their hidden location. South of Morton, there's a town called Berg de Rot. Your job is to scout the location and also to forge a good relationship with the townspeople who are escapees from Myrditch. At the gate, Florin is hostile towards you, saying that you might steal their food, so to ease him you add a piece of food to their chest, and this changes his impression of you. You ask him if there's any locations here in Berg de Rot where you may be able to hide some friends without attracting any vampire attention. He says that there's a cellar under the ruined pub, although it may be filled with rubble. In the pub you climb over the broken wall, open the trapdoor and mine the rubble. Amongst it you find a dusty scroll and a plaster fragment. These detail a late queen, Efarite of Hallowvale, who lived in a castle in this land, and also details of the 7 priestly warriors of Saradomin, with a focus on Evandis' weapon and the ingredients for the potion in his hand, this being an enhanced graphics balance. After clearing all of the rubble from downstairs, you talk to Razvan outside the pub, offering to help fix up more of the town. He says you should go and have a chat with Aurel at the general store. He says he needs you to fix the roof, and then the wall, and then he needs to stock up with 3 tinder boxes, 10 snails and 10 bronze axes. He hands you a crate to put them in. After stocking up, he suggests that you fix the bank. You mend the bank booth and the damaged wall behind it. Next you get Cornelius to become the banker. Razvan now suggests that you get the old furnace up and running again. You fix the chimney with 2 steel bars, refuel the furnace with some coal, and then light it. Unfortunately, Van Strom's enhanced smelling abilities alert him to the presence of humans at Berg de Rot due to the smoke. and he sends Gadaranx to collect blood types from there. You stop Gadaranx and the vampire juvenates from taking any more blood from the people of Bergdorot, with assistance from Veliath Hertz. On his last dying breath, Gadaranx asks you to take care of his family. You then get his warhammer. Veliath asks you to meet him at the old hideout. Here he tells you to take Ivan Strong to Patadomus so he can further his training as a priest. In the meantime, Polmathy and Radagad prepare to go to the new hideout. During your trek to the temple, you defeat some vampire juvenates, and Drezel will now take Ivan as his trainee. When you ask Drezel about Evandis, he seems reluctant to give any information out, but after prodding him, he gives you a key to access the secret library downstairs. Here the books are full of details. Before Lord Draken, Mauritania used to be a green land that was pleasant and bounteous. Also, Draken's castle may actually predate him. Most importantly, he learned that Evandis' rod is made from a mixture of silver and mithril, has a sapphire, is enchanted, and is blessed by holy water. The specific size of the weapon is particularly important, and Evandis' tomb is in the cave under Mortmire, close to the old hideout. You use some soft clay to make a mold from Evandis' tomb, which has an outcropped shape of his weapon. Then at a furnace you get a silphril rod, which you enchant, and then use a rope to lower it in the Patadomus Mausoleum's well to bless it. At the new Myreque hideout, you show Veliath the rod of Evandis and are rewarded. Completing this quest is a requirement for Darkness of Hallowvale. To start this quest you must have completed the Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Nature Spirit, In Search of the Myreque, and In Aid of the Myreque. After the success of finding a new hideout, Veliath Hertz wants to re-establish contact with the Myreque in the Sanganesti region. Your mission is to update Safalan Hallow, who originally created the rebel group and is currently in Myrditch. Just south of Bergdorot you find a ruined boathouse, and inside you fix the boat with a plank and 4 nails, and also fix the boat chute with another plank and 4 nails. You push the boat down and it is ready to be boarded. You go around and navigate the wall, and then inquire about the Myreque with a Myrditch citizen who says you should speak with Old Man Raoul. There is a way to get to the hideout by following the sickle logo. Making your way through the maze that is Myrditch, you climb stairs, jump between buildings, and avoid the Firewatch at all costs. You push walls down, making walkways between buildings, crawl under walls, walk across a clothesline, find a ladder top which you use to repair a broken ladder to go downstairs, and eventually make it to a wall that has a little latch that can be unlocked using a knife. When you push the sickle into the wall, it unlocks a trapdoor underneath the lumpy rug, which you climb down to find the Myreque hideout. Here you meet Vetida Cephalatis. He hands you a message to deliver to Veliath to say that they're still alive in the Sanganesti hideout. It seems that they need more support. Veliath sends you to investigate some strange happenings at Patadomus and to consult with King Rold as to request some assistance here in Mauritania. Drezel and Ivan have heard some strange growling noises coming from the stairs west of the temple. You search the bushes here and find someone lying unconscious. 2 hooded werewolves knock you out and then take the unconscious man as to collect a blood type from him. The fact that werewolves are able to go west of the River Salve is worrying. You update King Rold, although his advisor Aeonisig Racefer says that they should not take any decisions too hastily. If Saradomian warriors were to fight against the forces of Zamorak across the River Salve, it would possibly start a new god war, and it goes against Guthic's edicts that say that there must be balance. King Rold says that a group of mercenaries can be arranged to assist, but in the meantime they are going to have to go through all the paperwork and bureaucratic process regarding the laws before they are able to officially send help. It's strange that a Saradomian advisor is citing Guthic's edicts. Veliath thinks this situation stinks of politics and they're just trying to use it for their own gain, although Rold did enact a mercenary protocol to see when the best moment would be to send support. Veliath wants you to update the other Myreque with this information. Back in the region, you immediately talk with one of the vampires and ask to get sent to the mines. After filling the cart with 15 Daoltor, you go to the hideout. This is quicker than running the labyrinth. You update Vetida Cephalatis, and he says that Safalan is currently out on a mission to sketch Castle Drakon. On the wall, you run north until you find a barricade. Nearby you find a rocky surface with a sickle which you push, unlocking it, and then you go as far north as you can and climb onto the castle's wall, finding Safalan. You update him on the situation. He also thinks that the Guthic's edicts are an excuse. As he needs to go unite with his Myreque members, he would like you to sketch the rest of the castle. He recommends the most northern, then western, and lastly southern side of the castle to get this done. You stand on the spot north and make the sketch with some charcoal and papyrus that Safhalan gave you. Then the western side. Whilst here, you see Van Stromklaus talking with Vanascular Draken. They all feast on the latest batch of blood, and Rannis Draken is impressed with the large amount Van Strom has tithed recently. This could be related to the fact that humans are being kidnapped from Misfalin. Lastly, when the southern side is being sketched, Van Strom appears, and after taking 5 hits from him, you are knocked out. Sarius Gill appears, saying that Lady Vanascular has requested for Lord Van Strom not to kill this individual, saying that questions need to be asked first. Saying that her mistress has a message for Safhalan, she gives you the following cryptic message. The message you will find secreted behind tiles where smoke is carried away from the depiction of statuesque evil. You hand Safhalan the sketches and tell him the cryptic message of smoke and statues, which he tells you to decipher. In a house southwest of this hideout, you see a portrait on the wall depicting a female vampire statue holding a key. You slash the portrait and take the large ornate key. You also use a knife on the fireplace, and behind a loose tile you find a message. It talks about the experiments of combining different substances in a laboratory in hopes of finding a way to create more blood. As more and more vampires come along, there is an ever-growing hunger. But then the laboratory was closed down, maybe at the fear of the discovery of something that could harm the vampires. The writer of this letter hopes that the reader can find what secrets were discovered in the laboratory, which is found in the northeast of Myreque. It was written by Mauritius Gill, a member of the Myreque who shares the same surname as Lady Vanascular's servant. Now you are to inspect the laboratory. You find an interesting tapestry and use a knife to slash it, being able to go through. Then you place the key on the vampire statue, which unlocks the door. Downstairs in the laboratory, you find some runes in a case and telekinetically grab Haim Alchemy Volume 1. One last time you return to the hideout, giving the book to Safhalan. It contains some research notes about the vampire's weaknesses. Safhalan also tells you about 2 hidden doors in Myreque, which can help you reach the hideout faster. A last message is delivered to Veliath. Safhalan has recommended you for the promotion to the rank of Private within the Myreque, and you are rewarded with XP. Completing this quest is a requirement for A Taste of Hope. To start this quest you must have completed The Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Nature Spirit, In Search of the Myreque, In Aid of the Myreque, and Darkness of Hallowvale. Just outside the Theatre of Blood, you speak with Garth. He tells you the tale of Seraphina, who was the only person who has ever successfully completed the Theatre of Blood, and has been granted the freedom to no longer have to give any blood tithes. Many citizens of Myreque are inspired by her and have hope that they can also attain such freedom through the Theatre of Blood. Vampires come from all around Mauritania to watch the citizens' attempt, as if they were watching a sport. You see Rannis Draken and Van Stromklaus enter the theatre, so you update the Myreque about this. Safhalan wants you to find out what Van Strom is up to. Just west of the bank, near the theatre, you try to climb up some rubble, but you need to distract the guard first. You speak to Harpert, and he wants 1,000 coins so he can buy a sword, as he believes he'll have a better chance at taking on the Theatre of Blood. He distracts the vampire, and you climb up onto the wall. You avoid the steaming vents and make your way around the top of Versinhaza until you reach a window which you peek through. Van Stromklaus and Rannis Draken are speaking with Versik Vitur. They now have an abomination, a creature that can track its prey as long as it has its blood. Vanascular Draken wants Safhalan and the adventurer, in this case you, to be kept alive, but Rannis doesn't want to make any exceptions or let any opportunity slip through their fingers. They also say that if Seraphina could discover the vampire's weaknesses, maybe the Myreque can do so as well. You update Safhalan again. Him and Vertida are going to form a plan of action. Haim Alchemy 1, which you obtained in the previous quest, is written in a strange vampiric language which has taken a long time for Flagey and Scroot to translate. Not only were the experiments performed on humans, but they were also performed on vampires. It seems that the vampires don't have complete immunity from attacks, and the research in this book shows the vampires trying to find a way to overcome this weakness. You mentioned how Rannis implied that Seraphina had discovered their weakness. Flagian thinks it's a good idea for you to try and find Seraphina's discovery. At the western wall, just south of the broken fountain, you find Seraphina's house. Downstairs there's a locked door. You find some mysterious meat in one crate, which you grind with a pestle and mortar, and a mysterious herb from the barrel. These are added to a vial of water, and then you use the potion on the locked door, but it doesn't work. A riddle on the door gives Safalan the idea to fill the empty vial with his own blood. You use the mysterious herb and grinded mysterious meat again, and then pour the blood potion on the door, which unlocks it. Inside the chest you find old notes. Flagian may be able to translate them. It turns out that the notes are gibberish, and that the myth of Seraphina, knowing the secret weaknesses of the vampires, was actually a ruse by the vampires to trap the Myreque, and since Safalan used his own blood, the abomination now knows where they are. It enters the hideout and starts killing all of them, but when it attacks Safalan, a strange shield protects him and weakens the abomination, which you defeat alongside Vertida. Now they need to change hideout location to underneath Old Man Raoul's house. You find a trapdoor and go downstairs, meeting the Myreque again. Safalan blames himself for being so naive to think that Seraphina was real and that the humans actually had a chance against the vampires. Vertida points out that Safalan's magic managed to weaken the abomination. He has no idea how this magic works. It only seems to come on when he's angry or threatened. Before Flagian died, he managed to translate more of the Hayam Alchemy book. You work with Vertida to finish translating it. There are two factors that matter in defeating vampires. First, the weapon has to be made of silver. Secondly, due to the vampire's quick reactions, you need a weapon that attacks in an unpredictable way. The Rod of Evandis would make a good shaft. For the head, a silver sickle would be the obvious choice, and reinforcing it with an emerald enchantment would increase its effectiveness. The chain just has to be strong enough that it doesn't break. You grab one from the crate here, you attach an emerald to the silver sickle and enchant it, you get a Rod of Evandis back from Veliav Hertz, and with all three components you make the Evandis flail. The vampires believe they have defeated the Myreque, so they will make an official announcement. Ransom Draken is one of the senior figures, so this is an opportunity to defeat him with his new weapon, and as vampires and citizens of this land will all be attending this announcement, this would be a great opportunity to foster some hope in the people. You talk to Kael Forshaw and say that you're ready. A cutscene plays, with Ransom Draken announcing the defeat of the Myreque, and then you enter the scene saying otherwise. After a difficult battle, you defeat him and give a speech to inspire real hope in the people. Right in front of them, they see that Ransom Draken lies dead. You ask the citizens to help fight alongside the Myreque, and together they can push back the darkness of Hallowvale. Together they can bring down the tyranny of the Draken family and bring hope to all of Mauritania. Myreque prevail. One last time you speak to Safalan and get Ransom Draken's medallion, the Evandis flail, and some XP. Lunar Draken will not be pleased about this. Completing this quest is a requirement for A Night at the Theatre and Sins of the Father. Contact. To start this quest you must have completed Prince Ali Rescue, Gertrude's Cat, and Icflorin's Little Helper. You talk to the High Priest of Icflorin in Sophonem. After the events of the previous quest, the good news is that they now know that the pox they have is not contagious, as you didn't catch it, but Menephos still thinks it is, and they're still keeping their city locked. The High Priest tried to send some people to delegate, but they had arrows fired upon them. You ask if you can get into their city from underneath, and he says that aside from burying the dead, there's only the sect of Scabaras beneath them. Scabaras is one of the 4 demigods of the Menethite pantheon, and he represents wisdom and isolation. There's also Apmacon, the goddess of friendship and pleasure, Krondis, the goddess of resourcefulness, and Het, the god of strength and mental health. In the Book of Light and Day, which is the holy text of the Menethite pantheon, it explains the story of Tumakun's dream journey, where he slept for 4 days and 4 nights in a row, and each night came a strange dream which resulted in one of the Menethite gods. Outside the temple above the sect of Scabaras, Jack says that during the night before the plague outbreak there was an explosion that came from the tunnels underneath the temple, which put it into ruins, and the High Priest hasn't been updated since, so as to not preoccupy him more than just focusing on the plague. It turns out that there is an elaborate tunnel system down there. The bank guard gives you many warnings saying it's dangerous, you say thanks and enter. You dismantle the traps and run past the mobs, making your way around to go further down. You find a body and a piece of parchment covered in blood. The letter written to Caliph by Oz says that the mission is to relieve the agent in Menephos. You see a girl called Mesa on the other side of the rift. You tell her that Caliph is dead. It turns out that Oz is Osman. The only thing stopping access between Sophonem and Menaphos is this chasm. You presume that Mesa is working as a spy for Osman, and you say that you're the one who rescued Prince Ali. She asks you a few questions to double check to see if you're someone that she can trust. She asks where Prince Ali was being kept held in prison, and you say Drainer Village, and when she asks you who helped, you say Leela. Before Mesa helps you to free the stuck citizens of Sophonem in Menaphos, she would like to discuss directly with Osman first. Osman accidentally slips some information that he might have been the one who caused the lockdown of Sophonem and Menaphos in the first place. You explain Mesa's insistence to speak with Osman directly, but he doesn't seem convinced in wanting to help you. So you say that not only can he find treasure down there, but you say that it might even further the divide between Menaphos and Sophonem, which is in Osman's interest, as the different desert tribes are known for being rivals with each other. Having Menaphos and Sophonem fighting each other is in the interest of Valkyrie, as they won't be focusing against them. He says he'll meet you outside the gates of Sophonem. You explain how there is a secret entrance to the north by following the tunnel underneath a pile of rocks. Osman still has a few tricks up his sleeve, and he makes his way into the temple unnoticed. Once again, you make it through the tunnels, passing by the traps, and Osman is updating Mesa with more mission details, and just as Osman is about to leave, a giant scarab appears and attacks him. He disappears and you fight the giant bug. After you defeat it, it drops the Keris and Osman reappears. Mesa has agreed to return the Sophonem citizens home. The Keris that was inside the scarab belonged to Caliph, and now you can keep it. You return to the High Priest, and he says that the Menaphors sent over some of their dead, and amongst them were the Sophonem citizens disguised. You are rewarded with XP. Completing this quest is a requirement for Beneath Cursed Sands. To start this quest, you must have completed Prince Ali Rescue, Gertrude's Cat, Ikflurin's Little Helper, and Contact. You speak to Jamila in Sophonem, who acts a little strange, trying to sell you a ring, so as not to raise the suspicion of the guards. She shows you the gold ring, and as she puts it on your finger, she slips you a message, and then she takes the ring back saying, "Never mind, it's too small." The message tells you to head east by the cliffs to find a camp. Here is Mesa. She's no longer working for Osman, and she has found out that people are disappearing from Menaphos and working to excavate a necropolis just south, but everyone is acting strange, working all day and night without rest, as if in a trance. You speak with one of the citizens who is in a haze, aiming to get the work completed. As you're about to report back to Mesa, you're stopped by the guards, who appear under the influence of the Devourer. After knocking them out of their hypnosis, the last thing they remember is that Pharaoh Chemesis of Menaphos was going to hold an audience, but only a woman with deep red eyes was there. A mascot, the Devourer, has hypnotized the people of Menaphos to dig up the necropolis to find a tomb. Humans with the head of insects coming from the northeast assisted, and then she entered the necropolis with monsters and the entrance collapsed. Back at camp, Mesa accidentally says something on the lines of dating Caliph, and that Osman didn't care for them. On the other side of these cliffs, you might be able to find Scabarites, and in the meantime, she will go to Nada and speak with her herbalist friend Zahor. Climbing up the steps to get to the cliffs, you find an ancient furnace and refuel it with some coal, then lighting it. You search the well and find a stone tablet. A cryptic message written on it says that the Zamorakians are coming, so a precious artifact has been locked in a chest and hidden under the southernmost ritual pillar. The code to unlock it is in the name addressed, which is Akham. Unlocked with the digits 1118513, you find a scarab mould. Back at the furnace, you melt an iron bar into it, making a scarab emblem. Up north, you inspect the pillar with a gap on its side, where you place the emblem upside down and you hear a click nearby. Inside the tomb, you defeat 2 scarab mages and then avoid arrow traps, pulling 2 levers within a minute of each other, unlocking the next room. The southern plaque gives you 4 emblems, and then you read the northern plaque with a riddle of which order to place them in the 4 urns. Once correctly placed, the door clicks open. Here you talk to a spirit called Mehar. After understanding that a mascot is digging up tombs just south, he is willing to help you. The tomb is the resting place of Mehar's father, Osmumton, who was the pharaoh of these lands during the time of the battle between the gods. He was offered powerful weaponry, but then when the war was over, he was tasked with hiding those weapons, lest they fall into nefarious hands. 2 of them were buried with him, and that is what the Devourer seeks. A mascot's only intent is for every soul, living or dead, to be destroyed, and the weapons in the tomb would grant her that godlike power. As the Scabberites have been disturbing Meha's rest, he asks you to defeat the High Priest, who doesn't realise that he's a puppet for the Devourer. To free him of her control, you learn an incantation. In an urn at the back of the room, you find a rusty key. This unlocks the room with the High Priest, but just before you have the chance to say the final word of the incantation, the High Priest sets his champion on you. After you defeat him, you say the incantation, and the High Priest is free of the control of a mascot. He says that she has gathered the 4 demigods that came from Tumkum himself. As they share his power, she could claim it as her own and become godlike. Pharaoh Chemesis is also under her control. As the Scabberas are known to be isolated, the High Priest will remain here and fight any forces of the Devourer that appear. You find Mesa in Zahu's herb shop in Nada. The pox is easily curable. It was caused by cadaver bark, which causes spots when in contact with the skin. You update her on what you learnt. For the cure to be ready, Zahor only needs 2 more ingredients. Mesa will get the scarab venom, and you're to get a lily of the Elid from a small island just west. You give a crocodile some meat, and then he happily swims away. You now believe that you're firm friends with a crocodile, which you have decided to name Roger. Then you pick up the blue lily off the river Elid and head back to Nada. The heat levels of the equipment are set up, and she makes a few batches of the cure. The first batch is given to the High Priest of Sophonem, and then you meet Mesa near the necropolis. You say the incantation again, and all of the Menethors are freed from the hypnosis. The citizens offer to clear the blockage as you head back to Mesa's camp. Osman appears, aware that Caliph and her had a bit of a romance between them. You try to explain to Osman that there are larger forces at play, and that the rivalry between Menethos and Al-Kharid is secondary to that. He doesn't believe you, and then suddenly the earth shakes and Osman disappears once again. You fight and defeat the difficult Menethite Ak, and now Osman thinks that there is dark magic at play. You meet Mesa back in Sophonem, next to the High Priest, and the cure has worked. Soon they're meeting with Pharaoh Chemesis at the bridge. After an anticlimactic conversation, the possessed Pharaoh speaks little and stalls the opening of Menethos. Mesa gives you a spear with a keris on the end, which is probably a thank you gift from Osman, and she gives you an enchanted circlet. You are rewarded with 50,000 agility XP. Mesa is going to head down to Osmanton's tomb, and she says you can meet her there. King's Ransom. To start this quest you must have completed Black Knight's Fortress, Rune Mysteries, Murder Mystery, Merlin's Crystal, Holy Grail, Druidic Ritual, Jungle Potion, Shiloh Village, and one small favour. You speak to the gossip outside Sinclair's mansion. Something strange is afoot once again. They arrested a different member of the family than the one who you concluded was guilty, and the rest of the Sinclairs have left. Also, King Arthur has disappeared from Camelot Castle, as well as the Knights of the Round Table and Merlin. The guard points out that as the castle used to belong to the Sinclairs long before King Arthur moved in, they may be involved with their disappearance in an attempt to live there again. Since the front door is locked, you climb in through the smashed window on the side. Upstairs in the library, you find an address form, in the bookcase you find a Black Knight helmet, and in the dining room you find some scrap paper. The guard is going to take this evidence for an official case in court, but this will take over a month, so you decide to take matters into your own hands. You speak with Anna in the prison cell, and she'll let you know a secret entrance into the castle if you help her be released, innocent from the case of murder. She hands you a bit of thread, the colour of her trousers, although her siblings may also share a similar colour. The prosecutor presents the dagger with Anna's fingerprints, the thread which shares the colour of her clothes, and the poison which killed Lord Sinclair. Your first witness for the defence is the dog handler. He says that everyone bought poison from the salesman when he passed by the house. Then you call to witness the butler. You ask him about the dagger, and he says that only Lord Sinclair used to hold the dagger, which used to be in a display case, although on one occasion he saw Frank handling it. He was paying a lot of attention to the dagger. So you say that your client could have had her fingerprints planted on it. Next you call forward the maid, and ask her about the night of the murder. On the way towards Lord Sinclair to deliver his meal, she only passed by one of the Sinclair siblings, a young man. Lastly, you ask about the thread. As she does the laundry, the maid cannot confirm who it belongs to, since the siblings share many colours. The jury plead not guilty, and she is free to go. Now she has to handle all the paperwork before she is released. The secret entrance into Camelot is behind a statue east of the castle. Inside, Anna is talking to David, and it seems that they were planning everything together. They fooled you into getting her released, and Morgan Le Fay appears. You say that you will stop her, but she knocks you out. You are in a prison cell with the Knights of Camelot and Merlin. The reason King Arthur is not here is because Morgan turned him into a granite statue. Then he was taken away by the Black Knights. Morgan Le Fay teamed up with the Sinclairs, as they had their own gripes with King Arthur. The Knights of the Round Table and Merlin were overwhelmed by the force of the Black Knights, and the Holy Grail was taken too. Morgan cast a spell on Merlin, causing him to lose all of his powers. You make an escape plan. With all the knights, you find a way to get Merlin out of prison through the window, and outside the cell there's a guard fixing his hair. You telekinetically grab a hairpin from him and start unlocking the metal door. You manage to get out of prison with the knights. While they are fighting against Le Fay's soldiers, you find the Holy Grail inside the round purple box. Meanwhile, Merlin is dealing with the Sinclairs. Even if he doesn't currently have his magic, he can still fool them. Wizard Crumpety in Ardoyne knows animate rock spells. For the spell to work, you need Arthur's most prized possession and a piece of granite. You put on a bronze med helm and an iron chain body and go into the Black Knight's fortress. Then you equip full black armor to go down the ladder. Here you see a statue of King Arthur. You read animate rock spell and he is freed from his granite prison. You hand him the bronze med helmet and chain body so that he can sneak out. As Merlin has managed to remove the Sinclairs, you go to the castle with all the Round Table Knights there, and you get your reward from King Arthur. Merlin also said that if he finds any of the Sinclairs at the mansion, he will cast magical spells on them. You now have access to the Night Waves training ground. Swan Song. To start this quest you must have completed the Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Creature of Fenkenstrain, Garden of Tranquility, Rune Mysteries, Druidic Ritual, Jungle Potion, Shiloh Village, and One Small Favour. You talk to Herman Karanos just outside the Piscatoris fishing colony. Trolls are attacking at the moment, and Herman wants an experienced adventurer to help. He suggests the Wise Old Man. Even though you insist that you're an experienced adventurer, Herman tells you the Wise Old Man's adventures. You tell the Wise Old Man about the situation of the sea trolls. He says he will do his last great quest. This shall be his swan song. Legends say that the swan, before it dies, sings a song of outstanding beauty as a fitting conclusion to its graceful life. He says he will need some supplies first. He needs 5 blood runes, 10 lava runes, and 10 mist runes. With this he goes to the colony. You go into the tunnel and the Wise Old Man follows. Sea trolls come out of the water and you defeat 7 of them, collecting their bones for later. Now you can enter the colony. On Herman's desk is a book about a man called Dionysius who has adventures all around the world, strangely similar to many quests that you've been on. The last entry of the book is about Dionysius going under the ground on Enterana. Before getting a reward, you need to improve the colony's defences. Herman recommends you start by talking to his brother Franklin, who needs 5 sheets of iron to patch the colony wall. In a shed, you add some logs to the firebox, light it with a tinderbox, and then put your iron bars in a metal press to make iron sheets. On the western side of the colony, you fix the 5 damaged walls. Then you talk to Arnold Lidspor in the general store/bank. He wants to resupply with 5 freshly caught and cooked monkfish. While fishing, sea trolls appear. Now you cook the 5 monkfish, restock the store, and go to Herman expecting to get a reward. But the sea trolls are still an ongoing threat. As Herman sent most of the colonists away when the sea trolls started attacking, the colony does not currently have enough men to form an army and defeat all the sea trolls in one fell swoop. The Wise Old Man suggests going to Wizard Frumscone at the Wizards Guild in Yanil, who might be able to create a limitless supply of zombies to defeat the trolls. In the basement of the guild, Frumscone is unable to help, but he secretly tells you that he knows a man who might be able to get you an army. He is talking about the necromancer Malignius Mortifer south of Falador. As Malignius likes to show off his power, he says he can raise an army of undead skeletal magi. All he needs is 7 bones. He recommends you talk to the master crafters in the crafting guild to see if they can make any vessels to hold the seeds. The master crafter says that if you can make an airtight pot, like Tassie Slipcast has previously taught you, that would be sufficient to carry the seeds. He hands them to you and teleports you to the colony. What a nice guy. You talk to Herman and say you are ready to fight. The skeletal magi defeat the sea trolls and the sea troll queen appears. The Wise Old Man easily defeats the queen, but then she comes back as a kraken, knocking him back. Lastly, you defeat the Sea Troll Queen. With regards to the reward, you keep insisting that you want the Wise Old Man's hat, but you can't get it. The Wise Old Man gives you 15,000 magic experience and 10,000 prayer experience, and Herman gives you 50,000 fishing experience. You can now make use of the Piscator's fishing colony at any time and catch monkfish. Completing this quest is a requirement for making friends with Myarm. Grim Tales. To start this quest you must have completed Witch's House. You talk to Silas in Tavali and he says he has some magic beans. He'll give you them for a griffin feather from Grimnash and a dwarven helmet from Rupert the Beard. On White Wolf Mountain you find Grimnash, who hasn't been sleeping well because of the wolves howling, so you tell him a bedtime story. Whilst it sleeps you take Feather and give it to Silas. At the stone tower near the ice mountain you climb over the crumbled wall and talk into the drain pipe. Rupert's being held prisoner by a princess. To help him get out you need to talk with him privately. To get up the tower you suggest that he lets down his beard. He does and you climb up. He wanted to learn from the princess, so she invited him to this tower, but then after being knocked out by a weird smell he found himself here trapped and with his armor stolen. You say you'll speak to the princess. Her second cousin, twice removed, is the Witch of Tavali, Nora T. Hag, who loves music. Just the other day, Myazra accidentally dropped a valuable pendant at her second cousin's house, and then a mouse took the pendant and disappeared into a hole. She will let Rupert go if you can get the pendant back. She gives you a spare key for the house. At the witch's house in the basement on the southern wall you find a piano. When you play the right tune, a compartment opens up and you find an odd potion recipe and 2 shrunk ogle roots. You add these to unfinished Taromin potions, making Shrink Me Quick potions. You stand next to some glyphs and drink the Shrink Me Quick potion, entering the mouse hole and running past the mice, climbing and descending nails along the way. You find the pendant and return to Myazra, who accepts it in exchange for Rupert being freed. As a reward, he lets you keep his helmet. Silas gives you the magic beans for it and says that they will grow very tall, and at the top there is a prize, a goblin made of gold protected by a giant. In the southeastern farming patch you plant these and water them, growing an absolutely massive beanstalk. At the top you fight Glod, and after defeating him you get a golden statue of a goblin. Then you climb down the beanstalk, talk with Silas, who says it will be best to cut it before any giants descend, so you shrink it with the other potion and cut it. You talk to Silas one last time and he gives you Rupert's helmet and a bunch of experience. Myarm's Big Adventure. To start this quest you must have completed Jungle Potion, The Feud, Druidic Ritual, Death Plateau, Troll Stronghold and Eadgar's Ruse. You talk to Burnt Meat at the Troll Stronghold. Recently, when trying to cook another human, the human said that he found a way to grow goutweed. Firstly, by getting a gout tuber from the Tybro One-Eye village, Myreque says that you can plant it in a farming patch. As Burnt Meat's assistant, Myarm, is learning farming, he would like you to assist him in growing goutweed. In exchange, Burnt Meat says that he will never cook another human again, as goat with enough goutweed tastes just as good as human. Myarm heard that the cooks on Death Plateau recently cooked a human who had a lump in his pocket that tasted like goutweed. You grab an empty bucket on the Death Plateau and use it on the cooking pot, finding the goutweedy lump. He confirms that it is goutweed by eating it. A farmer he ate recently had a book on him which talks about the basics of farming and preparing the soil in mountain regions with 3 buckets of Ugthunki dung and 7 buckets of super compost. Now you go on an adventure with Myarm to Tybro One-Eye village to learn how to grow goutweed. Myreque says that you can't grow normal gout tubers in mountains and that you'll need a special hardy gout tuber. As you've got at least 60% favour with the tribe, he lets you have some. Meanwhile, Myarm is getting bored and causing a rumble in the jungle. Now Myarm recommends that you take some armour and weapons because there's a giant bird on the mountain taking interest in the farming that's been happening. Back on the mountain, you hand a rake to Myarm, which he breaks, so you attach it back together and he rakes the weeds. Then you give him the hardy gout tuber seeds and the seed dibber and he plants them. The drunken dwarf appears and Myarm throws him down the mountain. You hand him some plant cure to cure the diseased patch and a baby rock appears. You kill it, although this angers its mother, who appears, throwing rocks at you and knocking you back. You fight it and Myarm throws a few rocks at it to help. Eventually you defeat it, and the goutweed has grown. To confirm if the quality is good, my arm eats it all. He says you can go and get a reward from burnt meat. Burnt meat gives you a bunch of burnt meat. So you go back to my arm, and he shares some knowledge on growing herbs, giving you 10,000 herblore XP and 5,000 farming XP. You also now have access to a disease-free herb patch. Completing this quest is a requirement for making friends with my arm. To start this quest you must have completed Romeo and Juliet, Cold War, The Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Creature of Fenconstrain, Garden of Tranquility, Rune Mysteries, Shiloh Village, One Small Favour, Swan Song, Jungle Potion, The Feud, Death Plateau, Troll Stronghold, Druidic Ritual, Eadgar's Ruse, and my arm's big adventure. Burnt Meat has a visitor called Wolfbone from Weiss. The chief of his tribe wants to exchange inventions with the mountain trolls. Your job is to fetch my arm and go to Weiss. It's true that the trolls do not know much more than growing goutweed and bashing things in the head. Larry from Cold War Quest is scared of my arm and allows you to use his boat to get to Weiss. There's a cave entrance that my arm might be able to go through as he's not good at climbing. From the wrecked boat nearby you get some rope and a pickaxe. You climb up the mountainside and at the top you notice a cave. You speak to Boulder at the entrance of the town. He won't let you in, so you run east and find a gap in the fences which you cross. You run past the trolls who throw rocks at you and descend into the cave. The trolls follow you and you squeeze through a gap to hide from them. You swim through the cold water, past the trolls continuously throwing rocks, and see the cave entrance that you need to clear. The last troll throws boulders that create a path of at least 5 rocks. You then mine open the entrance, and when they recognize the troll, they stop throwing rocks and take you to Mother. Mother's daughter, Snowflake, appears, and my arm falls in love. Then you see Don't Know What, who is Mother's strongest fighter after him, and Odd Mushroom, who is eloquent for a troll, and the inventor here. Mother says that they could teach you about the special fires that they've invented, but no matter how much you try to convince him, he's not interested in growing goutweed. Mother orders you to leave. You talk with Snowflake, Odd Mushroom and my arm. Snowflake wants to stay with my arm, and Odd Mushroom is annoyed that all Mother cares about is fighting. They need to deal with Mother and Don't Know What, so that Snowflake can marry my arm, and then they can share their inventions with the world. In the past, the Ice Trolls had a fight with the dwarves from Keldagrim. Then the wise young man helped save Keldagrim, and that is what drove the trolls into the ice. Without Mother's strength, they wouldn't have survived and been able to get there. The plan is to get the wise old man to come to Weiss, and if my arm can defeat him, then Mother will consider him a hero and might allow my arm to marry Snowflake. The trick is for the wise old man to pretend he's dead. You remind him that you saved his life from the Sea Troll Queen, so he'll need a cadaver potion, calibrated to suit his age, and a mahogany coffin. With 5 mahogany planks and 1 bolt-off cloth, you make the coffin. The apothecary in Varrock makes the optimized cadaver potion. The wise old man drinks it, and you carry him in the coffin. You travel on Larry's boat back to Weiss and use the cave entrance to get to town. You hand my arm the coffin with the wise old man in it, although this doesn't fool Mother because there's no blood on the body, and the wise old man also starts snoring. And he farts. Mother knocks the 5 of you out, and Odd Mushroom is badly hurt. He explains that the Fire of Domination blocks teleportation and aids Mother in the fight. The salts in the mine are combined with the fire to create a form of magic. Odd Mushroom has passed his knowledge on to Snowflake, and with that, Odd Mushroom passes away. The wise old man casts a spell to open the door and you all get out, fighting Don't Know What. Back on the surface, you grab a bucket from the pile, get water from the barrel, and extinguish the Fire of Domination. With help from everyone, you defeat Mother. Snowflake is welcomed as the newfound Queen of Weiss, and you serve as witness to her marriage to my arm. Then they perform the ancient dance of love. The wise old man returns to Draenor Village. Before the quest is over, they ask one last favour. They need you to pick up some goat poo in the northeastern building. Similar to the camel dung, they now have farming patches that can be used. One of them for goutweed, the other one for herbs. You also get a book that was written by Odd Mushroom on the interest of magic fires. The salts found in this area make fires that dispel darkness and provide heat. Braziers constructed from steel bars and mahogany, lit with the right combination of salts, can make permanent flames. The salts can also be combined to create teleports to Weiss. You are rewarded with 50,000 agility XP, 50,000 mining XP, 40,000 firemaking XP and 10,000 construction XP. You now have access to a disease-free herb patch and newfound salt technology. Completing this quest is a requirement for Secrets of the North. To start this quest you must have completed Romeo and Juliet, Cold War, The Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Creature of Fenkenstrain, Garden of Tranquility, Rune Mysteries, Shiloh Village, One Small Favour, Swan Song, Jungle Potion, The Feud, Death Plateau, Troll Stronghold, Druidic Ritual, Edgar's Ruse, My Arm's Big Adventure, Fight Arena, Hazil Cult, Doric's Quest, Goblin Diplomacy, Black Knight's Fortress, The Lost Tribe, Recruitment Drive, Wanted, Devious Minds, Desert Treasure 1, Enter the Abyss mini-quest, Curse of the Lord mini-quest, and finally, the General Shadows mini-quest. You talk to the guard outside the Carnelian mansion. A crime has happened, and since you've assisted them recently during the Hazil Cult quest, you are one of the suspects, but this is just a show that the guard is putting on in front of Lady Carnelian. He actually asks you if you want to help find a suspect, to which you of course agree. The guard heads upstairs and you follow. You see Sir Cyril Carnelian is dead and investigate the crime scene. He has a single stab wound to the back, caused by a thin blade. The broken window on the floor indicates an intrusion from the outside, and behind the wall you find a secret passage leading to a chest that's been broken into. You update the guard and he shows you an amulet with a skull on it, the symbol of the Khazad army, and there's a name engraved into the back, Evelot. You go to the bar at the fight arena and bribe the barman with 100 coins. He says that she was here recently but left in a hurry. You might be able to find her trail outside. You inspect the barrels and see a path of footsteps, at the end of which you see Evelot near a rowboat. She won't give up without a fight, so after defeating her, you ask her about the amulet. She says that someone must have stolen and planted it at the crime scene, although she does admit to robbing the Carnelian house, stealing a scroll, which she then gave to some cultists. At the cult hideout, you talk to Hazil about Cyril's murder and Evelot stealing the scroll. The scroll is what restored Hazil to life. He wants to make his return known to his Majorat kin. Clevit summons General Khazad, who is updated on events. They suggest that you speak to the family members and not leave any stone unturned. At some point in the conversation they mention a ritual, but do not elaborate any further on it. Back at the manor, you get the guard's permission to talk with the Carnelian members. Klaus the chef mentions that on the morning of Cyril's murder, he felt a strange cold and saw a shadow moving. You find and click a small button behind the cooking shelves, and the wall next to the notice board reveals a passage into a secret room. You pick the lock off the chest and find a dusty scroll inside, which you show to Hazil. Hazil and General Khazad speak critically about the importance of this half-crest, suggesting that maybe it's one of Hazil's kin who is trying to steal it, and that the scroll is what was sought to be taken from the Carnelian mansion originally. They mention going up north to the land of ice trolls, at which point you say that you are familiar with them. Then they use shadow magic to teleport there. On Weiss you speak to an ice troll called Big Fish, who is actually Hazil in disguise, and Deadwolf, who is General Khazad. Before the ice trolls settled here, this place used to have a different importance. You speak to Myarm, who says that something weird has happened in the mines. One of the trolls claims to have seen a shadowy figure. Before the God Wars, a settlement of the old empire was here. The fortress to the east is all that remains on the surface, but below there is a great prison sealed long ago. The crest that was stolen is going to be used to reopen that prison, and the ritual they were talking about is that one of the shadow kind is sacrificed to allow the rest of them to live. You descend into the mines. Hazil stays by the entrance and you investigate further with General Khazad. When inspecting the prison's magic barrier, the assassin appears, who is the same one you encountered during the Devious Minds quest. Alongside General Khazad, you fight the assassin, making him stand in the smoky clouds and avoiding the vials that he throws. But just as you're about to defeat him, he throws a smoke bomb and disappears. You explain that you knew the assassin as he killed some monks on Entrana and stole a relic from them. The assassin likely hasn't left the dungeon, so you might still be able to find him. When you search a barrel, you find a lever handle, and then you open a gate to the center room by spelling the word blood. The chest here is opened by putting in the number 7402, and inside you find an even smaller icy chest. With the tinderbox that you find inside the crate, you light the braziers in the order of northwest, southeast, northeast, southwest. This unlocks another chest where you find an old note and a strange shard. Next you enter the northern room by pressing the arrow buttons left, up, left and down on the lock. You use the lever handle on the lever mechanism and pull it. Inside the chest here you find strange symbols with names next to them. In the room where you fought the assassin, you inspect the southwestern pillar, finding another note, a strange cipher and another shard. You combine the two shards and use this to unlock the icy chest, getting an ice key. The ice key unlocks the gate just south of the central room, and you prepare for the final boss fight, equipping ranged and mage gear. You encounter a strange creature, and after a long and epic battle where you switch attack styles, freeze it, switch prayers, and honestly it took me 4 whole attempts, you defeat the strange creature. After defeating the Phantom, you talk to Jalan, who is the Majorat that Hazil was looking for. The strange creature appears to be the incarnation of Jalan's nightmare. He has the other half of Gorok's crest, and you warn him that the assassin is coming for him, but he does not heed your warning, and the assassin makes both of them disappear into the shadows. You warn General Khazad and Hazil, but as the assassin now has everything he needs to open the gate, he does. The assassin uses the Shadow Realm, and now it's too late to follow him into the prison. A detachment of soldiers are going to guard the prison at once. For now, you are left with more questions than answers, and then accept the teleport back to the Carnelian mansion. You tell the guard that the investigation has reached a dead end, and his superiors will not be happy that no one will be arrested. You receive 60,000 Agility XP, 50,000 Thieving XP, and 40,000 Hunter XP, and now have access to Gorok's dungeon. Lunar Diplomacy. To start this quest you must have completed Rune Mysteries, Lost City, Druidic Ritual, Jungle Potion, Shiloh Village, and the Fremennik Trials. You speak to Lokar Sea Runner. He was a young man when he ran away from Relica to become a pirate. The rest of his crew are going to Lunar Isle, where the Moon Clan live. They're Relica's biggest rival, having been at war for hundreds of years. He offers you a trip to the Lunar Isles. First you get a seal of passage from Brunt the Chieftain. You make it to the Pirate's Cove, climbing up the ladders and finding Captain Bentley of the Lady Zay. The people on Lunar Isle are magicians who can read minds. As soon as they sense any intention of wrongdoing, they can become aggressive towards you. Captain Bentley and his crew stole the ship one night from a Karamjan shipyard. This could be a reference to the Grand Tree and Monkey Madness 1 quests. When you depart for Lunar Isle, you somehow sail back to the Pirate's Cove. You talk to Birdseye Jack to see if he had the right directions, although he doesn't seem to think that he made a mistake. He instead thinks it must have been the magic from the Lunar Isle that put the ship off course, as the directions have never failed him before. The captain also thinks that the trip could have been jinxed somehow, so you talk to Eagle Eye Schultz at the very front of the ship. He explains what a jinx is. Then you talk to the cabin boy to find out who on the crew might have offended someone of the Moon Clan. He seems a bit suspicious. You then talk to Beefy Burns at the bottom of the ship. The last time that the crew visited the Lunar Isles, they were invited to a feast, and he suspects that might be when the Moon Clan were offended. You then talk to Lecherous Lee at the top of the ship. The only person who slipped away from the feast was the first mate. You talk to first mate Davy Boy. When he left the feast, all he did was inspect that the rigging was secure before the ship was docked securely for the night in case a storm blew up. He also reveals that the cabin boy wasn't at the feast at all. The cabin boy explains that on the night, a girl from the island told him to draw 5 symbols throughout the ship. This is the magic jinx. You light the emerald lantern and use it on the cannon, finding some symbols which you rub out. You also use it on the wall chart, finding another symbol which you rub away. On the lowest level of the ship, near the chest, you find a 3rd symbol, and just north of Beefy Burns on the support pillar you find a 4th symbol, and lastly on the crate here you find a 5th and final symbol. This removes the jinx. You finally make it to the Moon Clan Island. You walk into the city and a cutscene plays. Then you talk to the Oneiromancer by the Astral Altar. To bridge the gap between the Fremenniks and the people of the Lunar Isles, she suggests that you go through the ritual called View of Self-Dream. All the people on the island go through it, and it helps them to understand magic through understanding themselves. A few items are needed, and she suggests you start by talking with Baba Yaga in the chicken house, who can help you make the potion. 1 guam leaf, 1 marantal leaf, and a sukar tooth, ground using a pestle and mortar, are combined with a special vial she hands you. The Oneiromancer holds on to the waking sleep potion for safekeeping. Next you need to take a Drayman staff to the air, fire, water and earth altars to imbue it, and convert it into a lunar staff. Once again she holds on to it for safekeeping. In the northwestern section of the island you enter the mine and mine the stalagmite for lunar ore. You then melt this and smith it into a lunar helmet. Then you speak to Pauline Polaris in the northwestern section of the city. You guess her real name, which is Jane Blood Magic Maid, and she gives you the lunar cape. In the south of the city you talk to Meteora, who's had her special tiara taken away by Asuka. You fight these creatures until you get the special tiara, and she gives you the lunar amulet. South of the bank you talk to Rime Sir Salis, and she can tan the Asuka hides for 100 coins, which you'll then be able to craft into equipment. You make the lunar torso, trousers, gloves and boots. In the centre of the city you talk to Celine. Her grandfather may have buried the lunar ring before he passed away. She has fond memories of going on treasure hunts with him. He left her this clue. From water source you should follow, crossing the westernmost bridge and travelling further southwest, lead to a bloom of blue. On the most southwestern part of the island, you dig on top of some blue flowers and find the lunar ring, completing the 8-piece set. You give the last items to the Oneiromancer and she gives you some magic kindling from the first magic tree that ever grew, plus all the other items back. You use the waking sleep vial on the kindling to soak it, and you enter the house with a large ceremonial brazier, which you light and then add kindling to, making you enter a waking dream state. Here you see the ethereal man. In this strange place you have to complete 6 different challenges. You step on the southwestern yellow platform and it springs you onto the game of chance. The ethereal fluke says a number out loud, and then you have to get the dice into that number. All the dice have 2 options which sum up to 7. Once you complete this section, you are magically transported back to the centre. You talk to the ethereal man again and interpret the wisdom of that challenge. Next you step onto the purple platform and you talk to the ethereal numerator. He says some numbers and then you've got to guess the next 2 in the sequence. Complete, you interpret the wisdom again. Next you chop 20 logs quicker than the ethereal perceptive. Then you make the correct path across the platform and talk to the ethereal guide. Then you mimic the emotes of the ethereal mimic. Then you raise the ethereal expert. And reflecting on the last bits of knowledge obtained to the ethereal man, you've learnt 6 core lessons. Make sense of others to understand yourself. You must be able to relate to others. You must use your abilities to progress. You must be aware of your past and present to help you in the future. You must harness your confidence. And you must accept the unknown. On the final island, you have to defeat yourself. Once you do, you read about your life story on the lectern, returning to the Lunar Isle, where you awaken from the dream, and you return to the Oneiromancer. Seeing how well an outsider was able to go through the lunar trial, she is more willing to consider peace with the people of Relica. You now have access to the lunar spells and the ability to craft astral runes. Completing this quest is a requirement for Dream Mentor and the Fremennik Exiles, the Fremennik Isles. To start this quest you must have completed the Fremennik Trials. You speak to Ward Gunners at the most northern dock in Relica. He's looking for you. He comes from an island called Yatizso and his wife Maria is from Natisnot. The king of Yatizso has requested for Maud to bring you to him as he has an important task for you. 4 generations ago there was a beloved king. He had 2 sons who would always fight with each other. When the brothers came of age, they confronted each other on the field of battle to claim the prize of their father's lands. When the king asked one of the sons if he had won the battle to claim the land, he said, "Yeah, it is so." But the other brother said, "Nay, it is not." They went back and forth repeating the words for 3 days. The king got angry and banished them to go out and find their own land. But they somehow managed to conquer the same island from different sides, and their feud continued. Also, an army of trolls is amassing on the island. They ferry you to Yatizso. You speak to King Jucky Sorvat IV, but the cat keeps interrupting the conversation, requesting a tuna. You feed it, and you can now continue your conversation. He's noticed that many ships have been departing and entering Natisnot, and they're suspecting that they're planning something. In the meantime, the dwarves of the Red Axe are currently inhabiting Yatizso, and are eating all of their food and drink, not leaving until they get their 6 pieces of mithril wool. You give the ores and receive 5,000 coins. Back on topic, he thinks that Natusnot is planning an attack. As you've become famous in Relica for your ability of playing the lyre, King Sorvert suggests that you infiltrate as a fool. You can entertain the rival king and try to get them drunk to see if they will reveal why they have so many ships coming in and out. In the chest behind the king's throne, you find a jester hat, top, tights and boots. You're to meet Slug Hemligson, the king's spy on Natusnot, using the secret code "Free Stuff Please." Your mission is to infiltrate Mornis Burrougher's hall, undercover as an entertainer, and after they've had a few barrels of beer, you can get the information. You talk to Mornis Burrougher and put on a show. You take note of the information that his guards are talking about in the background. They're going to be ready to advance onto the caves in 2 days. They have 17 militia getting ready, and 2 bridges need to be repaired. You then go to Mornis without your outfit on. King says he is looking for a valiant and courageous individual who is not afraid of trolls. They would like you to repair the bridges. First you need to gather 8 ropes made from yak hair and using the spinning wheel, and 8 Arctic pine logs split at the tree stump. They give you 1,000 coins for getting the ropes and 1,500 coins for splitting the logs. You repair the 2 bridges and receive another 1,500 coins. It appears that they are planning to use these bridges for a raid on the Troll Caves. Their goal is to defeat the Troll King, and you're to lead the expedition. Due to all of this planning, King Mornis Burrougher is aware that on Ytirso the king may be suspicious of the coordination that has been happening lately. He would like you to find out if the king of Ytirso isn't planning anything mischievous while you endeavour to complete this task. You make your way back to King Sorvert, and he anticipates an invasion by Natusnot. So to fund a war, he's added a new window tax as their coffers are not flowing very highly at the moment. He appoints you as tax collector. You collect thousands from the annoyed Ytirso citizens. If you cover Gashfright's 5,000 coin tax, you can get access to her shops after the quest. With all the tax money collected, you return to the king, but the coffers are not full enough, so he now taxes beards and mustaches. You collect even more tax, and now he thinks he can fund a war. The king wants you to find out who's been repairing the bridges, so you have to report back to the spy master. Slug Hemligson would like you to learn more by gesturing again for the king. You tell Slug that the militia are in a secluded bay near Etsteria. They're going to be given some potions, and you are the one who was helping fix the bridges. Back on Ytirso, you admit to the king that you repaired the bridges, and explain that Mornis is not amassing an army, but it's a raiding party to get the leader of the trolls beheaded. King Sorvert is still paranoid that Natusnot is going to attack, so you give the king a wake-up call. You explain that Natusnot does not care about Ytirso. They are focused on killing the trolls, and King Sorvert doesn't give any consideration to the troll problem. He's just burying his head in the sand, and with his attitude and taxation, he'll run Ytirso into the ground before the trolls even get there. It's no surprise that he has a jester's outfit behind the throne. Maintaining his arrogance, King Sorvert plans to get his people and soldiers united to kill the Troll King before Natusnot does. You explain that it would be wiser to join forces with them, but the king hands a decree stating that if Mornis tries to stop King Sorvert from attacking the Troll Cave, he will consider it a declaration of war. You are prepared in the Natusnot tradition so that you can lead the expedition. They give you the traditional right of making the armour of Natusnot. You need to cull several yaks to make yak hide armour, a top and bottom. And you need to make a traditional Fremennik round shield with 2 Arctic pine logs, a length of rope and a bronze nail. They welcomed you into the clan of Natusnot. You head north to the Troll Cave, and in the cave you find a Natusnot militia. First you kill 10 trolls, and then you can deal with the Troll King. You cross the bridge to encounter the Ice Troll King. You defeat him and then decapitate him. You return to Mornis Burrougher with the head of the Troll King. You gain 20,000 XP in a combat skill of your choice, and Burrougher gives you his Natusnot helmet. You also get 10,000 woodcutting XP, 5,000 crafting XP, and 5,000 construction XP. Completing this quest is a requirement for the Fremennik Exiles. To start this quest you must have completed Shield of Arav, Merlin's Crystal, Lost City, Dragon Slayer 1, Hero's Quest, Mountain Daughter, Druidic Ritual, Jungle Potion, Shiloh Village, Rune Mysteries, Lost City, Lunar Diplomacy, the Fremennik Trials, and the Fremennik Isles. You talk to Brunt the Chieftain. He needs you to investigate a minor disturbance in the sand pit just north. You talk to Freygard. She mentions seeing a creature with red eyes in the middle of the night. You search the sand pit and a basilisk youngling appears. You quickly defeat it and it drops a letter. The message seems to be calling for an attack on Relica and the freeing of a creature called Jormungand. You then search some boxes just south of the house and find a venom gland, and search the rock slide nearby, finding a fang. You give these items to Freygard and she is terrified that a basilisk is in Relica. Brunt explains that many years ago a great basilisk army enslaved the people of Relica. They are also smart enough to read, which is why there was a letter. The Jormungand, also known as the Serpent King, is the leader of the basilisk army. A hero known as V stood up to the Serpent King and confronted him on the Island of Stone. V stood victorious and brought an end to the reign of terror of the basilisks, trapping the Basilisk King in a tomb of stone. In the meantime, Agnar comes into the hall and says that 7 out of the 12 council members have signed for you to become an exile of Fremennik, blaming you for the basilisk problem. Just southeast of Relica, you find Brunt the Chieftain. It turns out that many on the council were looking for any good excuse to exile you since you arrived. He then tells you the tale of the end of things. V foretold that the world would end in a great battle after a basilisk invasion once Jormungand is released from its prison. The best way to defeat Jormungand and gain support of the people of Relica again is to restore V's shield. It was made with 4 components. The base was a traditional Fremennik shield. You might be able to get one from Bardur in the Waterbirth Island dungeon. Then there was lunar glass made by a mystic moon clan, and it could reflect the Serpent King's gaze. Then there was the polished rock needed to shine the lunar glass, which was heated softly in the boiling spring. The V sigil was made from a unique metal found only on the Lunar Isles and enchanted by Fossagreeman. Jarvold takes you to Waterbirth Island and you go into the dungeon. You drop your pet rock on one button and stand on the other to be able to open the door. Equipping the rune thrown axes and using the special attack on the middle door, you can venture deeper. You then make your way through, using different protection spells for each section. At the very end, you find Bardur attacking some Dagannoth fledglings. Equipping the Ring of Karos, you're able to get a Fremennik shield for free, and next you go to the Lunar Isles. Inside Baba Yaga's magic chicken house, she imbues a piece of molten glass, and then with 100 astral runes, you can enchant it at the altar, obtaining the lunar glass. With 3 lunar metal bars made by smelting the ore obtained by mining the stalagmites under Lunar Isle, you can smith a V sigil, which is then enchanted by the Fossagreeman. She says that she owes a debt to V, as this conversation wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for him. Next you go to the mountain camp. Although you hesitate to put the pet rock in the large geyser, thinking about all the good memories that you've made, and all the adventures that you've had, you can't bring yourself to do it. So you go to Pier de Seer to forget all the memories you have of your pet rock, so that you may be able to have the courage to lower it into the geyser. Equipping some ice gloves, you lower the pet rock with a fishing rod. You now have the polished rock. With a glass blowing pipe in your inventory, you combine the 4 components together, creating the shield. You show it to Brunt the Chieftain, and before you go back to Relica to see if you can regain the support of the people, he wants 2 kegs of beer so that he has the courage to face everyone in the long haul. Following the successful recreation of V's shield, the council have agreed to end your exile and you are declared a Fremennik again. As V is the greatest hero that Relica has ever seen, it is an honour to equip his shield. At this moment the basilisks attack. Alongside your Fremennik brethren, you defeat the monstrous basilisks. Once you've defeated enough of them, you board the ship to go to the Isle of Stone. At the entrance of the Prison of Stone, you realise that it's already been breached. You must defeat Jormungand before he manages to leave. You solve a game of Mastermind and unlock the door. When you enter, you see Typhor, Vritra and Bakuna, which are the main generals of the Basilisk army. You defeat 2 of them alongside Brunt. Then Jormungand awakens and kills Bakuna to absorb its strength. Every time he gives a glowing red stare, you turn away to avoid its damage, and every now and then he encapsulates you in stone, which you click away to escape. With Brunt the Chieftain, you defeat the Jormungand. The end of things has been prevented. You return to the Long Hall to celebrate by getting drunk. You are rewarded with 50,000 Slayer XP, 50,000 Crafting XP, and 30,000 Runecrafting XP. Dream Mentor. To start this quest you must have completed Druidic Ritual, Death Plateau, Troll Stronghold, Eadgar's Ruse, Jungle Potion, Shiloh Village, Rune Mysteries, Lost City, the Fremennik Trials, and Lunar Diplomacy. You crawl through the cave entrance in the mine on Lunar Isle and find a fallen man. He still has a pulse and you see his health, spirit and armament are all at 0%. You feed him some food and he wants a variety of at least 3 different foods. After feeding him some, he awakens a bit. You reassure him, making him feel a little bit better. With more reassuring comments and food, he seems to be getting much better. He remembers that he was attacked by the Sukas. He ran into the cave, although he was badly hurt. Sirius is an adventurer who's travelling all around the world. He was visiting the Lunar Isles, although the attack on the Sukas caught him off guard, and that is why he had to crawl into this cave. He doesn't feel confident enough to leave this cave without his armour. He says he has a friend in the bank who can withdraw it for him. Standing in the bank is Birdseye Jack. He recognises you as the person who accused him of sailing in circles. He was tired of looting and hunting for treasure and he wanted to turn his life around. He gives you a chest that can carry things in. As you're more of a warrior, you select the Dragon Medium Helmet, the Abbey Whip, Arim's Robe Top and Robe Skirt, and the Ranger Boots. Sirius is happy with the armour that you got him. You get his health back to 100 and inspire him a bit more. He is from Ardoyne and enjoys fishing. He feels healthy, positively charged and dressed like a war machine. He is ready to get past the Sukas, but he admits to you that he is afraid of fighting monsters. He has learned the techniques and has the equipment, but every time it comes to fight, his legs turn to jelly, he drips with sweat, and all he can do is run. He came to the Lunar Isles to go to the Dreamland to hopefully deal with his fear. He says that he would like you to take him to the Oneiromancer so that you can support his guidance in the Dreamland. The Oneiromancer says that the potion of shared dreaming can send both of you to the Dreamland to sort out Sirius's biggest issues. She explains that all you need is a special vial which you put water in with 1 ground astral rune and goutweed, and then you have to light the brazier and then use the potion on it. This time you can bring whatever equipment you want to the Dreamland. You confront the monster of Sirius's dream called the Inadequacy, which symbolises his fears. After defeating the Inadequacy, you fight the Everlasting. Then you fight the Untouchable, and lastly you fight the Elusive. Sirius gives a final blow and you awaken from the dream, returning to the Oneiromancer to claim your reward. 15,000 hit points XP, 10,000 magic XP, and a lamp that can give 15,000 XP in any combat skill apart from attack and prayer. You also learn some new lunar spells and can use Birdseye Jack to bank without a seal of passage. Completing this quest is a requirement for Dragon Slayer 2. Regicide. To start this quest you must have completed Plague City, Biohazard and Underground Pass. King Lathas says he's ready to move against his brother Tyrus. To recap, Tyrus went on many expeditions to the west. On one of them he was captured by the Dark Lord with whom he joined forces. King Lathas built a wall around West Ardoyne as a barrier to the rest of the world. The plague was made up as an excuse for the cordon. The plan is now to make contact with the elves that inhabit the western lands. Lord Iorwerth will send some representatives to meet you on the other side of the underground pass. You are to find King Tyrus and kill him. Also, currently the elves are dealing with a rebellion. You go through the underground pass until you make it to Ivan's temple. You enter the well here and then exit the cave, making it into the elven land. As you run west, an elf called Idris appears, but he quickly dies to some of Lord Iorwerth's guards. They tell you to go west so that you can meet Lord Iorwerth. You jump over leaf traps and go past stick traps. Whilst on the way you get some rabbit. Then you step over tripwires and eventually make it across a log balance into Lord Iorwerth's camp. He supports you in defeating Tyrus, although his camp is currently facing an issue with a rebellion. Tyrus has moved his camp to a new place, so you have to find it. He suggests that you find a tracker who's been looking for it. He's at Tyrus's old camp to the south. But he doesn't trust you as you've got nothing to prove that Lord Iorwerth sent you, so he hands you a crystal pendant. You show the pendant to the elf tracker and he now trusts you. The elf tracker is currently trying to trace the renegade brethren of the rebellion instead of Tyrus at the moment. You investigate near the blue mushrooms and find some tracks which lead to some impassable woodland. He tells you to look at the dense woodland with new eyes and you're able to go through. On the other side, a Tyrus guard appears. You defeat him and then travel north, going past the tripwire and through some more dense forest. You make it to Tyrus's camp and talk with General Hinning. It seems that King Tyrus isn't willing to see anyone at the moment. You then take some of the nearby barrels, and south of the elf tracker you fill them with coal tar. You also take some sulfur here from the pile nearby. Once again you return to Lord Iorwerth. He hands you a book detailing explosive reactions and how to create bombs. You get quicklime by melting limestone in a furnace, and then you grind it with a pestle and mortar, and with a pot in your inventory you make a pot of quicklime. Then you grind some ground sulfur and make your way to Rimington. You talk to the chemist and he explains how to use the pressure machine outside. You use the barrel of coal tar on the fractionalizing still. You increase the pressure till it's in the green zone, and then you add some coal to increase the heat, but not overheating. Once the bar is full, you get the barrel of naphtha. You then use the pot of quicklime and the ground sulfur on the barrel and use a strip of cloth as a fuse, making the barrel bomb. Once again you go through the underground pass and head back to the catapult north of Lord Tyrus's camp. You give the guard a cooked rabbit which distracts him from the catapult. You load it with a barrel bomb that you've just made and then operate the winch, causing a massive explosion in King Tyrus's camp. You then make your way back to Lord Iorwerth. He hands you a letter to show King Lathas in East Ardoin. You now have access to the pass through Arendar. As you try to enter Ardoin's castle, Arianwyn speaks to you. He is the leader of the Elven resistance. He's been observing you since you entered the Elven land and saw that you're the one who killed King Tyrus. He unlocks the message from Lord Iorwerth to King Lathas, which says that they are one step closer to welcoming the Dark Lord into the realm, and that Camelot will be crushed underfoot. It turns out that King Lathas has been manipulating you into executing the plan to bring forth Zamorak and everyone dying. He tells you to act normal as you go to King Lathas, but then to return to Turanwyn and seek out Isilwyn and Elened in the Azafdar forest. They will bring you back to Arianwyn. The king doesn't suspect you, and you are rewarded with 13,750 agility XP and 15,000 coins. Completing this quest is a requirement for Roving Elves. To start this quest you must have completed Waterfall Quest, Plague City, Biohazard, Underground Pass and Regicide. You find Isilwyn and Elened in the forest. Arianwyn has told them about you. Isilwyn says that it was humans that led to his grandmother, Glariel's, death, and he's worried that you will bring similar ruin to them. You explain that you moved her remains to Baxtorian Falls. Now Elened and Isilwyn trust you a bit more. If her burial location has been moved, her new tomb must be consecrated. If you do this for him, you will further gain their trust. The Elvish tradition is to plant a special enchanted crystal seed at the graves of the ancestors. The seed will create guardians to protect the area. You revisit Glariel's old tomb by using the pebble on the tombstone. You fight the moss giant here and get the consecration seed, then taking it to Elened. She enchants the seed, and you enter the waterfall, finding the key to open the entrance to Glariel's new tomb. You plant the crystal seed and it grows a tree made of crystal. Isilwyn now trusts you and will take you to Arianwyn as promised. You get to choose a crystal bow or a crystal shield as the reward. He explains that after the equipment has been used, it reverts to a seed, and an elf named Ilfine who wanders the Azafdar forest can enchant the seeds into new items for you. You gain 10,000 strength XP. Completing this quest is a requirement for Mourning's End Part 1. To start this quest you must have completed Sheep Herder, Waterfall Quest, Plague City, Biohazard, Underground Pass, Regicide and Roving Elves. Elened takes you to Letya. You get a tiny crystal seed which allows you to teleport here, and when it runs out of charges, she can recharge it. Letya is the home of the Elven Resistance. Arianwyn welcomes you. You ask why King Lathas and Lord Iorwerth are working together, and where does the plague fit in? Many years ago, all elves lived in harmony within the crystal city of Prifddinas, alongside the goddess Seren. When the God Wars ended, they lost Seren. To lead the elves through the tough times, Baxtorian Kadan was the first king of the elves. The elven kingdom expanded into the east and they prospered for a while, but there was an enemy walking amongst them. Lord Iorwerth turned away from Seren and gave himself to Zamorak, the Dark Lord. As the elven kingdom was large, their forces were further spread, and Lord Iorwerth took advantage of that, claiming Prifddinas as his own. Baxtorian tried to take it back from him, but there was no way to retake it. In a last attempt to keep the city safe, Baxtorian and the clan elders sung the Song of Inversion, which reverted the entire city into a giant crystal. The rest of the kingdom had fallen while he was away, and Glariel had been taken. Then the land erupted into a civil war, and they have been fighting ever since. It is still uncertain what King Lathas has to do with all of this. For all Ariane can determine, it seems that Lord Iorwerth promised to support King Lathas in reclaiming some land that his family once owned. We still don't know what's in it for Lord Iorwerth. The mourners that are seen in West Ardoin are in fact elves in service to Lord Iorwerth. They are looking for something that they want in West Ardoin, and they are also seen regularly crossing the Arendar mountain pass. The plague is a cover-up for them to enter the city unchallenged. You need to find out what the mourners are up to. As you're the one most familiar with the city, you've got to make up the plan as you go along. You get to the huge gate at the entrance of Arendar. You kill a mourner to get his equipment. He drops a letter which is a certificate to join the Death Guard. You then speak to Tegid by the Tavley Lake. You ask if you can use his soap and he says no, so you just take the soap from his basket. You use it to clean the bloody mourner top with a bucket of water. In Letya, you talk to Erianwin. He says that you can try asking the local seamstress, Oronwen, to fix the mourner trousers. She needs 2 pieces of silk and 1 bear fur. Whilst you are here, you buy 1 of each dye from her shop. Next you go to West Ardoin with the full mourner outfit equipped, so you can enter the headquarters. Downstairs you talk to Esselt, who is by his desk. You hand over the letter of recommendation and he welcomes you to the Death Guard. He updates you on why they are lying about the plague. It's so that Lord Iorwerth can secure the city. They are accessing the caves below to keep their presence in the city secret. The agreement that Lord Iorwerth made with King Lathas is actually a ploy. Whilst there was the promise that they would dispose of the Knights of Camelot once their work here is done, they are not actually intending to do that. The plague allows the elves to move around the city in secret thanks to the mourner disguise, and secondly, it means they can abduct citizens to mine the caves below. They are just pretending that they fall victim to the plague. You ask how no one has found out yet, and he says that a girl from Eastern Ardoin was sneaking around and asking too many questions, so they locked her up. But an adventurer helped her escape. Luckily for Esselt and Lord Iorwerth, that same adventurer dealt with King Tyrus. Also, they have fooled the farmer into thinking that his sheep are infected. Your current job is to re-dye them. He explains that they use a gnomic device that fires dye parcels that rupture on impact. Unfortunately, the device is broken and they ran out of packages. He gives you a key to the next room and a device so that you can speak to the gnome who might be able to fix it. You open the cell and see a gnome on a rack. He says that every torture has been used on him and that there is nothing to make him tell you how to fix the device, although he slips that he has been craving toad crunchies and has a fear of being tickled on his feet. You dangle the toad crunchies above the gnome's nose and hold the feathers menacingly close to his feet. At this point he gives up and says for you to bring him some leather and magic logs and he will see what he can do. You release him from the rack, let him eat the toad crunchies in peace and he fixes the device. Then you use dye on the empty ogre bellows, getting coloured toads. You load the device, re-dyeing the 4 different coloured sheep. Now the head mourner, Esselt, wants you to make it appear that the plague is still a threat, so you're asked to poison the food supply, just as some joker did to them not too long ago. This would send more citizens to the mines. Like before, you take a rotten apple from here. You talk to Elena and update her on events. She's reluctant to help you because she doesn't want to give a toxic infection to the people of West Ardoin, but you explain that there's a bigger threat if she doesn't help. First you need to mash up the rotten apple and dissolve the toxin into a liquid, then mix it with naphtha and strain out any solids. Lastly, you need to heat the mixture. At the orchard, northwest of Ardoin, you grab a barrel and use it on the pile of rotten apples to fill it. You then use the rotten apples on the apple press and use a barrel of naphtha on it. Then using a sieve to get the toxic naphtha, you lastly heat it up on a range. It slowly evaporates and you're left with 2 doses of toxic powder. You then poison the grain sacks in the main building and the supply in the church. You speak one last time to Esselt. He now tells you that they need slaves for the mines. A long time ago, Seren ordered the construction of a great temple beneath the earth. It is believed that this temple is beneath the city. They're using the miners to find it. You're going to be needed soon to assist. Currently he's waiting on a guard who's copying a key. You update Arianwin on the events. He thinks they are looking for the Temple of Light and that Lord Iorwerth intends to use the power of that temple to summon Zamorak. You earn 40,000 thieving XP and 25,000 hit points XP. Completing this quest is a requirement for Mourning's End Part 2. To start this quest you must have completed Sheep Herder, Waterfall Quest, Plague City, Biohazard, Underground Pass, Regicide, Roving Elves and Mourning's End Part 1. You are to return to the Mourner headquarters and gain access to the mine to learn about what progress they've made towards reaching the Temple of Light. Esselt hands you the key to the excavation site and says that one of the dig teams has gone missing while searching for the temple. You run down the cave, past the dark beasts. The dig team seems to have found the temple, but are dead outside the front of it. The rest of the mourners aren't yet aware of this discovery. You search a guard, finding a journal. The journal details Eden's journey as an elf working under Lord Iorwerth, firstly becoming a tower guard but being attacked by pigeons, and then tasked to use a device to dye sheep, but running out of ammo and prompting him to improvise and use vials of dye, which ends up breaking the machine. His last task was to go on a historic expedition to find the Temple of Light, but this entry documents his last into this journal. You enter the temple, attach a rope to a rock, and chisel a piece of blackened crystal. Arianwin says that the Temple of Light guards the Death Altar, and it is why Lord Iorwerth is so keen to access it. He plans to use the Death Altar to summon Zamorak. You show him the black crystal, and he calls for Elined. She enchants the crystal to a newly made one. You are to take this to the end of the temple and place it on the Death Altar, which will imbue the crystal with the power to safeguard the temple from the mourners. Then you have to place it on the blackened crystal again. Back in the temple, you see a crystal dispenser on the wall which you pull, collecting mirrors and crystals. Directing the beams of light and changing its colour, you solve a bunch of complex puzzles and jump across an agility obstacle, finding chests and increasing the number of mirrors and coloured crystals you have. Once you've solved the complicated light puzzles and rotated all the lights, you eventually make it through the light door, where you meet a dwarf called Forgal. You explain how you got there, and then he says that he came in through a hole in the back. He went through a cave full of traps, and you ask if he is familiar with Clank from the Underground Pass. He recognizes that you are the adventurer who Clank met. He knows that you're the one who got rid of Hybern, so he'll make you a special offer to trade 50 items for a death talisman, so you can access the altar. After bringing those 50 items, you then use the death talisman on the altar to go through. The newly made crystal is used on it, and it starts to glow with a strange light. You go back to the blackened crystal, placing the new one, and it shines with a bright colour. You return to Arianwin in Lechia. He says that the temple should be secure for thousands of years now, although you say that there is a back entrance that was discovered by some dwarves. He'll speak with them and ensure that the mourners are prevented from summoning the Dark Lord. You earn 60,000 agility XP and get a crystal trinket which will allow you to access the Temple of Light again after the quest. Completing this quest is a requirement for Song of the Elves. Sins of the Father. To start this quest you must have completed Vampire Slayer, The Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Nature Spirit, In Search of the Myreque, In Aid of the Myreque, Darkness of Hallowvale, and A Taste of Hope. You talk to Veliath Hertz in the graveyard in sleep. The town's been plagued by an illness. Those infected fall into a deep sleep never to wake. Lady Cromwick, who rules over this town with her husband, was the first victim. Their manor has been locked down, but the vampires have been seen around it. To investigate, Veliath recommends you start by talking to people who know the victims. Hamel the Jester's travelling companion, Hanshin the Hound, is the latest victim of the sleeper plague. Hanshin went to the Rat and Bat pub to drink a bloody bracer, and on the way back he collapsed. In the pub you talk to Carl. You ask him where he gets the bloody bracers from, but he won't tell you how it's made. So whilst he goes to the supplier to get more, you sneak behind him, following him around town to a dungeon. He talks to Croy and says that someone's poking around. Vanstrom Klaus and Damien Lowkurt appear. Deep within the underground sanctuary, Croy found a recipe for an elixir made by the Sisterhood. Those who drink it have their lives extended, but at the cost of being put into a deep sleep, never to wake, and they've been hiding this in the beer. This is advantageous to the vampires, as they can easily harvest more blood this way. Whilst Vanstrom Klaus commends Lowkurt's initiative, he doesn't appreciate his recklessness, as this has caught the attention of the Myreque. Vanstrom leaves for Darkmire and warns Damien that he will not be getting any supported defense from him. As you heard everything, Croy can't let you leave this place alive. You defeat him and then destroy his lab. Then you update Veliath. While he was investigating the manor, he found out that it had been taken over by vampires, more specifically, Damien Lowkurt. And once again, Vanstrom Klaus insulted Damien for his recklessness, accusing him of demanding too much from the werewolves. This would explain your encounter with them during the Darkness of Hallowvale quest. Before you go deal with Damien, Veliath would like you to meet him at Patadomus to check in with Drezel and Ivan before continuing your investigation. You update Drezel, and he says that the king's mercenaries have vanished, plus more families have gone missing. King Rold's advisor Aonisig is refusing to send military help. There's going to be a meeting in the haunted woods directly south of Fenkenstrain's castle, and Ivan has gone to spy on it. Veliath is worried because Ivan is the last living descendant of Ivandis Seergaze, and Drezel is the only other person alive that is also a descendant of one of the 7 priestly warriors. Ivan hasn't yet learnt about his heritage. You join him to spy on the meeting. The werewolves are delivering a family they kidnapped who were picnicking near the River Salve. They appear to think that Damien's days are numbered as the Myreque are investigating and killing the vampires. The meeting ends and Veneskula Draken comes with an offer. She would like to give you the opportunity to kill Lowernio Draken, so she can rule diplomatically instead and allow humans to live peacefully alongside the vampires. She is aware that Calcidiu is not a real person. Veliath made him up to try and instill hope in the rest of the Myreque. The word Calcidiu is an anagram of the word suicidal, which may be what the resistance ultimately is. She invites the conversation to continue, with all the Myreque attending, at the Icene graveyard. You'll escort Ivan down to Bergderot. At a bog, you cut down 3 tree vines and combine them to make a long rope, then attach it to a tree so you can swing to the other side. Jagex didn't even animate Ivan Strom swinging across. Then you kill some nail beasts and chop 3 logs to repair a broken bridge. Now you encounter 2 vampires who you protect Ivan from. Having made it safely to Bergderot, you then go to the boathouse. At the Icene graveyard, you are promoted to the rank of lieutenant in the Myreque. Before the land was known as Mauritania, it was Hallowvale. Saradominis used to live here, but then Lowernio Draken came from the Shadow World. He conquered the land and turned it to the hands of Zamorak. Whilst he's a great conqueror, he is a poor ruler. The society here is collapsing, with the numbers of humans decreasing and the vampire population growing. There's less blood to go around. Veneskula's dream is that humans and vampires can live together in a great empire, and that Mauritania could be a land of peace and prosperity. Her plan is to bring the Myreque as captives to the impenetrable Castle Draken. This would prompt Lowernio to leave his chambers for once, opening a window of opportunity to defeat him. Veliath is pessimistic about all of this. Now she would like a conversation with Safalan. He doesn't know much about his childhood, all he remembers is his name. Veneskula says that what's within the mausoleum will reveal what he needs to know. You solve the puzzle on the lock, and inside the plaque reads, "Here lies Larina Hallow, beloved daughter of Ifarate and Acertes Hallow, and faithful sister of Safalan Hallow." It turns out that Safalan is the half-human, half-Icene son of Queen Ifarate Hallow, the last queen before the vampire invasion of Mauritania. To shorten the war of Lowernio's conquest, Ranis Draken captured Safalan's father. Queen Ifarate then walked into Lowernio's camp in hopes that the father would be freed in exchange for her, but his father was turned into a vampire and the fate of his mother is unknown. The father changed his name to Vanstrom Klaus. You then go to every member of the Myreque in the order of Vetida Cephalitis, Kael Forshaw, Radagad Pomfit, Pomalfi Ferdigris, Ivan Strom, and Veliath Hertz. The earlier members show support for the plan, convincing the future ones, until finally Veliath, who is only convinced as the rest of the Myreque have agreed. Venescula suggests that you upgrade the Evandis flail. If you go back to the laboratory in Myrditch, you might find further research notes to upgrade the weapon. You make your way back to the laboratory. Safalan wonders if any of his father, Acertes, remains in Van Strom Klaus. Deep in the lab, you encounter a mutated Bloodveld. When it attacks, Safalan's magic powers activate, although this knocks him out. You defeat the other mutated Bloodveld. He's annoyed that he still doesn't have control of when his powers activate. In a room with mutated Bloodvelds, you find another volume of Hayam Alchemy, which you give to Safalan. Queen Efarate was a renowned botanist. One of the plants she grew was a blistered tree, the sap of which could create a poison deadly to vampires, and its bark can be made into weapons. Venescula only knows of one blistered tree in Efarate's old arboretum in the middle of Darkmire. If you can get a disguise, you can get into Darkmire. You can buy the disguise from Trader Sven just south of Old Man Raoul's house, and then you talk to Pamalfi to get it adjusted for you. Now you need to disguise the scent, so she recommends that you deal with Damien Lucert in sleep. The only way to get into the mansion is through the dungeon. Damien kills Lord Cromwick. When he throws fire, you put them out, and alongside Veliath Hertz, you defeat him. As he dies, you use his blood to scent your disguise. There's a crack in the wall just north of the Dayolt mine, where you'll be able to get into Darkmire. Now that you've got a disguise, you need a suitable name, Vampyrus Jargarin. With the outfit on, you're easily let out of the mine. You find a crack in the wall, which you go through, and then run around the city till you reach the Arboretum. The guard outside, Desmodus Lazarus, talks to you. No one's allowed in, but he'll let you in if you do him a favour. He says that after Gadaranx died, Van Strom Klaus owed him a debt. Desmodus Lazarus is to keep Gadaranx's wife and child, which you had previously promised to take care of. Morden Nikazi was supposed to be bringing them, but he hasn't arrived yet, so you go look for him. Morden Nikazi sold the slaves to Lord Alexei Jovkai for some blood because he was starving. He's keeping them in a prison just north of the Arboretum. Inside the prison, you talk to Maria Gadaranx. It turns out that Lord Jovkai has been keeping the Gadaranx as his personal tithes, and they don't mind giving a bit of blood every now and then to the vampires. At this moment, Van Strom Klaus enters, and he says that these prisoners belong to Desmodus Lazarus. Throughout the conversation, you remain turned away from him, and at the last moment he wants you to turn and face him, but you refuse, and then he thinks he recognizes your voice. Sarius Gil appears, and says that Lady Venescula has urgent need for him. You can now go into the Arboretum. Here you see some toppled shelves. In one of them you find a tatty note. With the right amount of water, you'll be able to soften the tree to chop logs or collect sap. You turn the valves of the water pipes to get the right amount of water that the tree needs and cut 8 logs. At the hideout under Old Man Rao's house, Vetida turns 7 of the logs into blisterwood sickles, and he thinks you can craft one for the flail. From the crate you find a blessed silver sickle. You use a ruby on it, enchant it, and then use this on the logs, creating the blisterwood flail. You talk to Safalan Hallow, who is staring out across the water, reflecting that this is all coming to an end, one way or another. You update him on what you've been up to, and that you didn't manage to keep your promise to Gadaranx, to protect his family. He still wonders if there's any remains of his father, and you reflect on your journey together up to this point. You go over the plan, that you'll go into the castle to fight Lord Drakon. Once defeated, Venescula will teleport you all out, and she'll take the place of ruler, to forge a relationship between vampires and humans, hopefully bringing in a time of peace. Myreque prevail. The Myreque walk into the castle as prisoners, and Lawernio Drakon appears. Lawernio could see through Venescula's lies, and she says that his days spent hidden are over. Lawernio overwhelms everyone, killing not only his own soldiers, but half of the Myreque, and then he takes Venescula. He leaves Van Strom Klaus to deal with the rest. Safalan tries to appeal to his father, but he's nowhere to be found. After an intense fight, avoiding acidic bloodvelds, shadow attacks, blots of blood, and shadow lightning, you defeat him. Safalan tries again to speak him to reason, but Van Strom says that he remembers the father as a weak man, and that he's so much stronger as a vampire. At this moment, Safalan's magic explodes and his father disappears. He's too far away to be teleported by Ivan for them to get out, so you have to leave Sapphiland to the vampires. Veliav thinks that the Myreque are dead and that it's all over, that there is nothing left that you can do. You receive a Tome of Experience that gives 6 times 15,000 for a total of 90,000 XP in any skill of your choice. You also have the teleport option to go to Darkmire, a night at the theatre. To start this quest you must have completed the Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Nature Spirit, In Search of the Myreque, In Aid of the Myreque, Darkness of Hallowvale, and A Taste of Hope. You talk to the mysterious stranger by the entrance of the Theatre of Blood. He has some associates who would like to see Lady Verzik embarrassed by being defeated by an adventurer. He says that it's not going to be an easy challenge and that you can go with a team to try to take it on. He got hold of some Nilocus eggs, which is believed to have come from Verzik herself. He would also like to be able to access Rannis Draken's memories. The mysterious stranger has an ability to see old memories and live through them, and as the vampire bodies take longer to decay, he wants you to retrieve Rannis Draken's head. He hopes to learn more about Verzik's abilities, and the eggs are a catalyst. Rannis was buried deep below the theatre, so you go down the staircase northeast of the stranger. You kill a Firewatch to get a key which unlocks the door, giving you access to the coffin where Rannis is buried. You use a saw to remove his head. The mysterious stranger uses his abilities and you get to see Rannis's memories. Lunar Draken was the one that found the eggs of the arachnid nest near Darkmire. The queen of the arachnids might be of a higher power. It sounds like Verzik wanted to breed new Nilocus. You go look for the spider's nest. You find the spider cave entrance and enter. At the end, you find an egg sac and a skeleton, which you examine, finding a sticky note. The Sisterhood have used the venom from the spiders to make the elixir that cause people to enter an endless sleep. Sulfuric acid may be used to remove the egg. You go into the dungeon in sleep and make your way to the center of the underground temple of the Sisterhood to meet Dea Krand. You explain that his assistant fell to the spiders, and that to get the egg sac free you need some sulfuric acid, which he hands to you as a thank you for updating him on his assistant's fate. You then make your way back to the egg sac, and when you use the sulfuric acid, spiders attack you in a swarm and they envenom you. You give the strange spider eggs to the mysterious stranger, and he thinks that with these he'll be able to get a clearer memory. A new purple Nilocus called the Athanatos is created, and as Hespori bark has regenerative abilities, it could also be used to make the Nilocus stronger. You then go to the nature grotto and speak with the nature spirit, who says that in the swamp you can find a Hespori. West of Castle Draken, you fight it and chop some of its bark, which you hand to the stranger to see another memory. Zarpus appears, the last of the Urasa from the Shadow Realm of Vampirium, from which the vampires came from. It appears that Lunar Draken has found a way to re-enter the Shadow Realm, although he hasn't enlightened anyone else on how to do so. The final Nilocus experiment was tiny, although Verzik believed it would grow big, but then it bit her and died. This led to Verzik getting her abilities. The mysterious stranger now has enough information to give his associates the ability to work on new weapons to fight Verzik. Now he just needs to get access to her memories. The only way to get there would be to enter the theatre and to complete it by defeating her. Throughout the theatre you have epic battles and find books which add to your knowledge of these creatures. When Seraphina's younger brother fell ill, as described in the Taste of Hope quest, she made a deal with Rannis Draken to save him, but this came at the cost of being transformed into the Maiden of Sugadinti. The pestilent bloat was created by an erratic vampire known as the Butcher by using different parts of different races such as ogres and cyclopses. In his book, the capital letter revealed the message "Don't trust her," and the 3 lines of gibberish at the end are anagrams for "Seraphina was betrayed, Verzik is dead, and Nilocus will rule." It was a mysterious being called the Stranger from Afar that led the vampires to Gielinor, and a large number of Nilocus travelled with them. Verzik Vitor domesticated several of their species and created the breeding program, resulting in 4 new variants. Sotutseg was manipulated into being able to travel into the Shadow Realm by the author of the next book. Next is a journal written by Lunar Draken. He complains that the vampires are no longer hunters, but instead merely farmers because of the Stranger from Afar. He wants them to remember what it means to be a true vampire. He reflects on his days hunting all the Urasa, except for one, Zarpus, the last king. The last book is a patient record written by Vulcan OSRS. It contains medical notes on Verzic Vitor and Annihilakus bite. The presence of the eggs had a negative impact on her vampiric abilities, including her immunities. Her ability to shapeshift, however, was unaffected. He performed an operation to remove her eggs and kept some for examination. These could be the ones that the mysterious stranger has. At this point, I'd like to shout out my brother Broken Legend for carrying me through the Theatre of Blood, link to his channel in the description. After you complete the Theatre of Blood, you talk to the mysterious stranger and ask him if he managed to get the memory of Verzic. The doctor, Vulcan OSRS, says that he cannot perform the surgery here. Verzic then transforms into a spider and kills the doctor. The Lady Verzic Vitor in the theatre is really just the Annihilakus Queen in disguise. The mysterious stranger now puts you in a communication channel where he can contact his master. The master speaks through him and says that you share common enemies that infest Hallowvale. When the time is right, you'll be able to fight Annihilakus together. He calls you a friend of Sugadinti. You are rewarded with 4 antique lamps which give 20,000 experience each to any combat skill except prayer. Monkey Madness 2. To start this quest you must have completed Death Plateau, Troll Stronghold, Enlightened Journey, Watchtower, the Eyes of Gluffery, Tree Gnome Village, the Grand Tree, Monkey Madness 1 and Recipe for Disaster. Despite having Gluff under close surveillance, he has managed to escape the stronghold. Perhaps you can find something in his home. You find a handkerchief with the initials AA embroidered into it and you go to Anita's house. She's crying, thinking that Gluff might be seeing someone else as she hasn't seen him in a while. She heard a noise in his home and tried to climb as quick as she could, but he was gone. There's an even higher level in Gluff's house. You search the crates and find a brush, and in the fire remains you find a half-burned note. You turn the statue, hearing a clicking sound. In the cupboard you find a book on spycraft and learn a method of writing hidden messages. First you grind a lemon and apply it to the parchment, then hold it over some light heat, like some candles, and the juice of some ripe grapes is brushed over the parchment, making the notes visible again. Finding the hidden text, it is written in a strange language. King Narno Shireen hands you a translation book and you ask Anita to complete the translation for you. What's written is, "It took some persuading, but the monk has finally showed me the route. I have managed to find a replacement pilot to fill my post while we are away. At dawn we head to," and the rest of the note is burnt. It appears that Gluff had help escaping. The only pilot that's been released recently is Laurie, who took over LeSmith's post as balloon pilot. She directs you to August, who recently taught LeSmith a very dangerous route that no one had ever attempted to do before, to Apatol. You update the king. Fortunately, the rest of the 10th squad had remained on Apatol after the previous mission to keep a close eye on Hallowvale. You are reassigned to go to Apatol and are to report to Sergeant Garkor for further orders. On Apatol, you buy a monkey talisman for 1,000 coins and see Garkor. The 10th squad haven't sighted Gluff on Apatol yet, but there has been a lot of strange activity. Disguised as a monkey, you speak with Hallowvale to see if you can find out more information, but he says he only discusses this with his generals. He's meant to be meeting one now, but he's late, so he sends you to get Kruk. Garkor suggests that you make a monkey Gree from Kruk's remains so you can infiltrate. One of the monkey archers informs you that Kruk has been leaving his post a lot lately. You find some footprints in the dirt leading down the western ramp, and a bit south of the gnome glider you find a trapdoor to Kruk's dungeon. You make your way around the dungeon, carefully walking around the dodgy ground to not fall down, jumping across some pressure pads and rope swinging across some chasms. You make your way across a large field of dodgy ground, eventually finding a chest with a bronze key in it, unlocking a bronze door before the key snaps. After finding your path and crossing the final obstacles, you reach the last section of dodgy ground where you can investigate the wall and find a hidden passage to the entrance, memorizing its location so you can quickly access the end of the dungeon whenever you need. You can flinch Kruk on a corner and then you get his paw. You make your way to Zooknok at the end of the Apatol dungeon and he makes the Kruk monkey Gree. Now disguised as Kruk, you go back to Hallowvale and learn that the monkeys are planning a freeway assault with an alliance between the ogres and the trolls. Plus they're working on a new fleet of battleships and are also developing a secret weapon. You update Garkor on their plan. Now you have to try to convince the trolls and the ogres not to join the monkeys. At the troll stronghold you try to persuade Cobb not to attack the humans alongside the monkeys and challenge him to a duel. If you win, they'll call off the attack, and if they win, they will attack the humans. Just before he dies, he calls off the attack, and then you make your way to Gutenov, and pay the Ogre Guard 20 coins so you can jump over the bridge and speak to Chief Keith. Once again, you ask him to end his alliance with the monkeys and challenge him to a duel to the death. With that, the ogres are no longer in alliance with the monkeys too. You update Garcore. In the meantime, he's heard that Le Smith has appeared on Apatol. You explore until you find him. As you're disguised as the monkey general, he reveals that the fleet of airships are being built off the coast of Apatol. So now you've got to find where the airships are and destroy them if possible. On the western side of the island, you find a monkey guard near a rowboat. He takes you to the platform and you make your way around a maze of crates, avoiding the line of sight of the monkey guards. Climbing and descending ladders until you find a crate with satchels, which you then fill 6 of them with gunpowder from a barrel. Then you find some compromised floorboards, a compromised support and a gas cylinder, and you strap down the satchels of explosives on them before leaving, bringing down the entire platform, escaping from the explosion as you row away. You update Garcore saying that you've destroyed the airships. Unfortunately, he has found in Crux Dungeon a secret facility where they're developing a secret weapon, protected by a magical barrier. Back in the dungeon, in monkey form, you swing across the monkey bars above the pit of spikes, and find a small crevice. Inside is a laboratory with demonic gorillas. You climb on one of them and make your way down the stairs. As the experiments have broken out of their cage again, Glove tells you to get them back under control before they destroy any more of his work. So you fight the tortured gorillas until they go back into their cage. Glove's been working on a mutagen which allows for control over the creatures. Whilst keeping them aggressive enough to tear anything apart that stands in their way, he thinks he's found the right balance, but he wants to carry out some final tests. He doesn't currently have a huge army, but once he makes the mutagen airborne, he will unleash it on all of Apatol. All that's missing is for the mutagen to infuse its power with the charged onyx gems. Glove goes out to look for Assistant Le Smith. You tamper with the device and remove the gem from the glowing orb. You use a chisel and a hammer to deconstruct it, and the flow of energy is inverted, reversing the effect of the mutagen. You then investigate the incubation chambers, and it seems that the mutagen has been successfully corrupted. You then update Garcore and Awawoge on how their plan is failing. The trolls and the ogres have backed out of the alliance, the fleet of airships will not be ready for the attack, and the secret weapon mutagen has been compromised. Just as Awawoge calls off the attack on the mainland, an explosion happens. There was still an airship. Glove and Le Smith set course for the Grand Tree to end this once and for all. You update King Narnode, warning him that Glove is coming on an airship with demonic experiments. You talk to Neve, saying that you need her assistance in fighting the demonic gorillas. The airship crashes north of the Grand Tree. You defeat 4 tortured gorillas and go north of the breach. Glove sets the tortured gorillas who can switch attack styles against you and Neve. After you defeat them, he takes a sample of the mutagen for himself and he kills Neve, leaving the dust of the Elysian Spirit Shield. Then you fight him in 3 phases. After a long and heroic battle, you defeat Glove, and the cave starts collapsing, so Zooknok teleports you out. You tell him that Neve couldn't make it, but Glove is no longer a problem. You update King Narnode too. King Awawoge wants to set up an agreement of peace between Apatol and the mainland. Awawoge thanks you for foiling Glove's plans. There is now a glider route to Marin, and you can get a bonus XP reward from Duke, the head of the Apatol Guard. You are rewarded with 80,000 Slayer, 60,000 Agility, 50,000 Thieving, and 50,000 Hunter XP. You now have access to the demonic gorillas, and are given a Royal Seed Pod to teleport to the Grand Tree. 2 bonus sets of 50,000 XP in a combat skill of your choice, except Prayer, are given after some intense training with Duke. Dragon Slayer 2. To start this quest you must have completed Client of Karen, Bone Voyage, Ghost Ahoy, Animal Magnetism, A Tale of Two Cats, Dream Mentor, Dragon Slayer 1 and Legends Quest. Alec Kincaid of the Myths Guild wants to learn more about dragons. If you can help him fill their library of knowledge, he will grant you access to the Myths Guild, and you can reap the rewards within. He directs you to the Karamja pub to speak with Dallas Jones, who's investigating the destruction of Crandor. You find him as he's about to investigate Elvarg's lair, and you tell him that you're the one who slayed the dragon. He explains that 30 years ago, Crandor used to be a thriving island until one day an adventurer discovered the dragon Elvarg and accidentally awakened her from her sleep. It made short work of the adventurer and emerged from the cave to lay waste to the entire island. Now that Elvarg's dead, Dallas Jones can research her lair. The fact that Elvarg lived alone is an anomaly among dragons. They tend to live in large groups. You see some blockage on the wall and use a pickaxe on it, finding a tunnel that leads to what appears to be a laboratory. Ancient tales say that dragons were created by a powerful race of creatures known as the Dragonkin, who terrorized the world for many years during the early 4th Age, albeit until now no connection has been proven. While investigating the ancient mural, a tiny spawn appears which you easily deal with. The mural has images of dragons and fungi alongside the word Lifkren. You also find some ancient machinery and notes next to it mentioning an experiment which usually fails, although the most recent result showed that the subject displayed heightened aggression but with lower mental capacity. Lifkren is a word that Dallas Jones has seen before on Fossil Island when investigating the connection between wyverns and dragons. In fact, the island has similar architecture to this room, as there was also information regarding spores and mushrooms. That connection now seems even stronger. You're going to meet Dallas there. You go to the house on the hill and climb downstairs, finding him. Lifkren is a nearby island, but there are a lot of islands around, so it's uncertain which one is which. On the floor, there is a grid, which is actually a map that can lead to Lifkren. You search the stone chests and some other places nearby to find tile pieces. These are placed into the correct locations, and with the map complete, you find Lifkren, which is northwest. You ask if the museum might help, but Dallas Jones says that there would be too much paperwork involved and there is no time. He's been researching this for years and is tired of waiting. He says that a dwarf called Jadric, somewhere on the island, would be able to get a boat for him. Jadric owes Dallas a favour, and as all the boats here on the island are owned by the museum, you're going to actually have to build one yourself. 8 oak planks, 10 swamp paste, 12 nails, a hammer and a saw later, you build a rowboat on the west side of the island. You get to the island and Dallas rushes in a hurry to explore. Jadric will look after the boat. You climb up and down some stairs, finding some ancient doors. But there's no keyhole, just a round insertion. You search a skeleton, finding an old book. It reads that the Dragonkin have been known to experiment on creatures, but the scale here is larger than anything they've seen in the past. Robert appears unconcerned, and this most likely refers to Bob the cat's previous life. The beasts which the Dragonkin have been abducting have been taken to this island, and the plan to come to Lifkren is the last entry into the diary. Dallas Jones thinks that Robert the Strong is dead, but you say that he is actually a cat, which will take him a while to believe or understand. You run around Gillinor to find Bob. He has no memory of Lifkren, so you both go to the Sphinx in Sophenem. The Sphinx grants you the ability to speak with cats without needing the amulet. While the Sphinx may be able to hypnotize Bob, he won't be able to help you find the memories of his past life. You mentioned that the Oneiromancer on Lunar Isle may be able to help. The dream between a cat and a human shouldn't be too different from 2 humans. You will still need a potion of shared dreaming. In a special vial of water, you mix a ground astral rune and some goutweed. Then you light the ceremonial brazier in the middle of the town and pour the dream potion. Inside the dream you see Bob, and not Bob. You say that you're looking for the memories of Robert the Strong. The memories are on the other side of this barrier. You have to head on and defeat Robert the Strong. You avoid his powerful arrows by running behind the pillars. After you defeat him, Bob's memories come back. As Robert the Strong, he remembers a team of people defeating the Dragonkin who were planning to release a weapon onto the world. A key was split into 4 parts and then hidden across Gillinor. Robert hid 2 of the pieces, one in a maze on the southeastern coast of the Karazi jungle, another in a fortress on a snow-covered island northwest of Relica. Tristan passed another piece down to his descendants in Varrock. Kamora took another of the pieces and travelled west, never returning to the mainland. You then make your way to the maze in the Karazi jungle and navigate it, avoiding damage from the Guardians who have 3 different attack styles. You also disarm traps and jump over others using your thieving and agility abilities. On your way to the centre, you find a skeleton with a journal belonging to Malamak. In the centre, you find a plinth with a dragon key piece which you take. Reading the journal, you learn that Malamak was a disciple of Zamorak. Zamorak had ordered a team of people to go to Karamja to look for this piece. How he got this information is still unknown. Next you ask Reldo in the Varrock Castle Library about Tristan Corvo. He says there might be records of his descendants in a red book. You learn that they settled in Mauritania. You find a ghost called Sarah and ask if she knows any of the Corvos. She says that she is in fact Sarah Corvo. Her father told her to keep the piece protected no matter what. When the vampires came to Port Phasmatis, she buried it out in the swamps to stop them from getting it. You have an idea to look for the metal by speaking to Ava, who made the accumulator for you. You explain that you're looking for a piece of the key made of red metal buried somewhere in the Mauritania swamp. She recognizes that the red metal is orichalcum, or dragon as the adventurers call it. With a cut dragonstone, 2 molten glass, a glass blowing pipe and a chisel, you make a locator orb. She adjusts it, and you can now track the piece. She also thinks that she might be able to upgrade your accumulator device if you bring her something stronger than chicken feathers. You use the locator orb, although it's a bit unstable, and you take damage when you use it. And when you eventually find the spot, you dig to get the second dragon key piece. You talk to Brunt the chieftain about a dragonkin fortress where Robert may have hidden his piece. The island is called Ungale, a dark place guarded by a deadly beast called Vorkarth. On the docks, Thorfinn can take you to Ungale. After a long and heroic battle with the mighty Vorkarth, you defeat it and go up the ice chunks behind him, pass a ruined building, and find stairs into a cave. You find an incubator which you inspect, finding an old note inside it. It says that the storage of samples here is better due to the cold, but they need more room, so they're planning to build a bigger facility on Lifkren. In the southwestern section, you see a lever, which you pull and you hear a ticking sound. You run to the wall on the eastern side before the door closes. Inside you find a chest with another piece of the dragon key and also a different, ancient key. Kamora founded the Shazian on Zaya. In the Shazian crypts, you run past skeletons which attack you with all three styles, and you eventually make it to the central area where you find a tomb that you inspect. The plaque on it is loose, and removing it reveals a second inscription. Robert, Kamora, Tristan and Ivers sat at a round table to plan their victory. It talks about on what side each hero sat at the table in terms of north, south, east or west, and what their weapon was. So you grab the 4 busts from the corner of the room and place them according to the riddle. Now when you search the tomb you find the final key piece. To forge the 4 dragon key pieces together, you need a furnace that's hotter than a typical one. Bob doesn't remember exactly where it is, but he says you might find one guarded by dragons off Mithril. You enter the ancient cavern and insert the ancient key that you found on Ungale into the door, getting into a strange room with 3 dragon heads and an orb. You cast Fire Wave on each of the heads and the apparatus is set in motion. You then go to the southwestern area of the ancient cavern and find an incredible looking forge. You use the anvil here to smith the 4 pieces of the dragon key together, successfully remaking it. You now use the ancient key on the ancient doors. It fits perfectly into the hole. On the other side you see a huge dragon and a mysterious voice says that the dragon's name is Galvik. The voice was of a dragonkin called Zorgoth. It turns out that Elvarg was just the first attempt at the weapon and was much weaker than Galvik. All the other dragonkin were defeated, but when the door was sealed it gave Zorgoth all the time he needed to perfect his experiment. More powerful than any other dragon, it would annihilate all of humanity. When asked why, he says that all of the dragonkin were killed, so to retaliate he will kill all of the humans. Galvik awakens and kills Dallas. You grab Bob and run away. Jardik shoots an arrow at Galvik, so Zorgoth attacks him. Galvik flies out from the ruins as it crumbles. Zorgoth is about to assemble an army of dragons. Wondering what to do, Jardik suggests going to King Rold as he has a large army. Jardik will talk with Keldgrim. King Rold is aware that dragons have been spotted flying around. You explain that Zorgoth is bringing them under his control and forming an army which he intends to use to attack humanity. In the meantime, King Rold asks you to visit King Lathas, Chieftain Brunt and Ceramic Vase to gather in Varrock to discuss the dragon threat. The kings will have to put aside their petty disagreements in this endeavour. In the dining room of Varrock Castle, all the leaders of the world are gathered to fight the greatest threat that they have ever seen. The plan is to attack the dragons before they attack the rest of the world, and it would keep the fight away from any innocents. Each ruler will gather their fleet of ships. Even though it won't be strong against the dragonfire, it's the best plan of action. Everyone works together to defeat this common enemy. Bob says that the real threat is Zorgoth. No matter how many dragons you kill, it won't be over until Zorgoth himself is dealt with. Without Galvik, Zorgoth has nothing. Thorfinn takes you to the fleet. All the warriors of all the realms of Gielinor are together. Whilst dragons attack the ship, you repair the damaged mast with a hammer and heal Fremenniks that are hurt. You uphold the ship and its members for 4 minutes. As the fleet gets closer to the island, the ships are overwhelmed. You now climb onto the debris of the ships, jumping from one to another. On the Varrock ship you defeat a red dragon, an iron dragon and a brutal green dragon. Then you see Bob and defeat 2 more blue dragons and green dragons. Then, when Zorgoth tells Galvik to shoot a fireball at you, Bob fucking jumps in front to save you. No! Bob! Next you defeat black, steel and brutal red dragons, and your allies appear to help. You defeat the Mithril Adamant and Rune Dragons together, and Zorgoth now releases the full might of Galvek's power. Your allies are watching your back whilst you take him on. After a very intense battle with 4 phases, you defeat Galvek, he fires one last breath out and it kills Zorgoth. That was for Bob. A statue is placed in memory of Bob. You go back to Alec Kincaid outside the Myths Guild and tell him all about the quest and all that you discovered. The secrets you uncovered help to fill out the Library of Knowledge and you are welcomed into the guild. You get 80,000 smithing, 60,000 mining, 50,000 agility and 50,000 thieving XP. You can now pass the magical barrier into the Myths Guild. The gnome Primula teaches you how to make some anti-dragonfire potions. You can now talk to Ellen, who will train you for 4 times 25,000 XP in combat skills of your choice minus prayer. You can now make wrath runes, forge dragon plate body and kite shields, and have access to adamant and rune dragons. With Vorkarp's head you can make Ava's assembler, and you can also craft ferocious gloves with hydra leather. Song of the Elves. To start this quest you must have completed Druidic Ritual, The Restless Ghost, Priest in Peril, Making History, Sheep Herder, Waterfall Quest, Plague City, Biohazard, Underground Pass, Regicide, Roving Elves, Mourning's End Part 1, and Mourning's End Part 2. Edmund says that Elena has been taken by the Knights of Ardoin. They claim that she was inciting a rebellion against the king. King Lathas says that although his brother Tyrus is dead, the Dark Lord is still a threat. The idea of the plague must remain, and there can't be a rebellion until he's dealt with, even though you know that the plague isn't real. You tell Edmund that the king will not free his daughter Elena, and you update him on current events. When she sent some plague samples to Guido and Varrock, it showed that there was no plague and that the king was aware of this. But as his brother Tyrus, the king of West Ardoin, explored the lands to the west, he supposedly became corrupted by the Dark Lord, and that is why King Lathas decided to quarantine the city off, to keep the rest of the world safe. The plague was an excuse that he gave for doing it. You then explained that there are elves who are in a civil war. An elf called Arianwin then updated you, saying that King Lathas and Lord Iorwerth were in fact the evil ones that were the ones intending to summon the Dark Lord. King Lathas was disappointed when his father split the kingdom into 2 between him and his brother, and he always hoped that he would reclaim Camelot from King Arthur. He believes that the Dark Lord will help him get that. Lord Iorwerth wants to use the Dark Lord to defeat the rebel elves and end the civil war, which has been going on for hundreds of years. As Lord Iorwerth believes that the secrets to summoning the Dark Lord are found within the Temple of Light, the plague was made up to hide their mining operation beneath the city. All the people who they claim died of the plague are actually getting sent into the mines. As they're holding Elena in the prison beneath the castle, you could disguise yourself as a Knight of Ardoin, infiltrate the prison and free her. Arena makes a tabard for the armor with some silk and some purple dye. You use the tabard on the plate body and the red dye on the helmet to colour the plume. You now have Ardoin Knight armor. Elena has a plan to escape. The iron grate at the back of her cell looks like it could melt with some sulfuric acid, which she has at her home. You get the thick, clear liquid from her cabinet and she makes her escape. Edmund knows that she got out and is currently hiding in the Renison household in West Ardoin. There, when you search the bed in the corner, you find a trapdoor underneath it, which you climb through. Here is the Ardoin Resistance. Elena has been busy recruiting people by telling them the truth about the plague, whilst you were busy infiltrating the mourners during the Mourning's End quests. Some people that she tried to convince didn't believe her and reported her, which is why she was arrested. You update her by saying that under West Ardoin, the Temple of Light is being discovered to summon the Dark Lord. You've got to set up a plan before they do so. Councillor Halgreave suggests that you use the dirty tactic of disguising yourself as a Knight of Ardoin and doing certain actions as if they were ordered by the king, which will upset the people. Even though it's not a perfect plan, it's for the better good. The aim is to recruit 80 more people across both sides of Ardoin. You disguise yourself as a mourner and burn sacks of grain in West Ardoin and say that it was the king's orders. You also tell the people that there are new taxes and that the nurse has to restrain from helping those that are sick. In East Ardoin you dress as a knight and start warning everyone about new taxes too. With 80 new recruits you'll be able to move against the king. Now you defeat 10 mourners upstairs, climb down the trapdoor and defeat 11 more. Esselt escapes by teleporting out. Before the king has any time to prepare, you go to the castle and defeat 15 paladins and knights of Ardoin. King Lathas says that he was betrayed and that the rest of Ardoin will be betrayed too. He was annoyed that he didn't get his birthright and that the land was split in two. He was aware that the mourners were being used to discover the Temple of Light and that he was assisting in bringing the return of Zamorak. He says that his brother was never meant to rule. Then there was a trial condemning the king. He curses everyone in the name of Zamorak and is executed. You and Elena are knocked out. You seem to be captured by Lord Iorwerth, and just as he's about to throw you in prison, Arianwyn appears accusing him of trying to summon Zamorak. Lord Iorwerth says that he is actually not supporting Zamorak, that was just a lie he told King Lathas to get him on his side. Once they discovered that he secretly worships him, it was the obvious lie to tell. Lord Iorwerth serves only one goddess, Seren, and the Temple of Light is actually going to be used to summon her, not Zamorak. He claims to have learned this by breaking a seal in the Library of Knowledge, but Arianwyn doesn't trust him. Iorwerth decides to let you go. In Lecture, a meeting is going to be called and you're asked to fetch Ysgwyn on the upper platforms, although he's not very trusting of you. And next to the pond you find Elena. Arianwyn wants to discuss a plan of action and why Lord Iorwerth may have let you go. Maybe he thinks that the rebels could be of use to him. By breaking one of the 9 seals within the Grand Library, he has learned that Seren lives trapped within the Temple of Light. Seren was the elven goddess who helped build the great city of Prifddinas. At the end of the God Wars, Seren was shattered into thousands of crystals. When Lord Iorwerth first took control of the city, Baxtorian led an army to try and stop him, but that failed. So they sang the Song of Inversion and reverted the entire city to a crystal seed. Baxtorian is the one that Seren trusted the most, so maybe he might have left some information before he passed. It's also important to learn what Lord Iorwerth's intentions are, and whether he does have access to the Grand Library. Isilwyn will give you a book that was passed down from his ancestors, which might contain something of use. You make your way to the Baxtorian Falls. Arianwyn's parents unfortunately passed when they assisted Baxtorian in trying to reclaim the Elven lands. This happened when he was a young child. He hands you the book that Isilwyn was given. The book is a riddle that talks about items that can be placed on the pillars in this tomb. A nature rune, an irit leaf, a black knife, a wine of Zamorak, an adamant chain body, and a cabbage are placed on the 6 pillars according to the riddle, and Baxtorian comes to life from his statue. You update him by saying that Glariel couldn't make it, but that you did move her remains here. Arianwyn says that Isilwyn, his grandson, is in Lecture, but sadly his daughter, Erlis, passed away. Arianwyn teleports himself and Baxtorian to Lecture, and you go back too. Baxtorian was filled in on everything that has happened, and he admits that he knows that the seals of the Ground Library can theoretically be broken. Seren told Baxtorian that those who followed the light could access her knowledge. Baxtorian thinks that you might be able to enter Prifddinas in its seed form. It's kind of like a box, and with the right potion you should be able to bypass the defenses around it. As Elena specializes in potions, you meet her next to the pond. She says that Baxtorian reminds her of the story of 2 brothers living in Avaroka. They had a simple life farming the land and selling produce to the people in the city. These farmers were called to fight in a war, and unfortunately one of them died, but with that also died all the hope that the other brother had. In a similar way, Baxtorian lost his wife, his people and his kingdom a long time ago. Though he might not be totally lost, he still has Isilwyn and could turn the war around. Here in the garden patch they have prepared the soil and you plant a Candentine seed for it to grow into an Elder Candentine plant. Although the walls of Prifddinas have been enchanted, Lord Iorwerth likely has managed to manipulate the defences. There were 8 separate elven clans that journeyed with Seren to this world, and all of those clans still exist. Lord Amlod, from the clan of Mystics, created Prifddinas' defences. He's alive but went into hiding. He left a clue behind, which Baxtorian has deciphered. He also deciphered Lady Traherne's clue as well. The clue for Lord Amlod is that the Elven Crystal will lead you to him. Baxtorian gives you a crystal seed which you can use to help locate him. And to find Lady Traherne of the Mining and Smithing clan, her clue was that she journeyed south from the well. You also ask Baxtorian about Seren, and he says that although she was remarkable, under the surface she hid a great pain, a sadness unlike any other. She never spoke of it, but you could see the anguish. Even gods had their demons. The brightest light cast the darkest shadow, and no one shined brighter than Seren. Elined enchants the crystal seed that Baxtorian gave you, and you teleport to the edge of a field with a mysterious figure who has a bear cloak. You see a stag and nature all around you. You describe the land ahead of you, and he says it reminds him of Prifddinas. He is Lord Amlod, and he is happy to travel to Lecture with you. Next you go to the Well of Voyage near the western entrance of the Underground Pass. South of the well you see a crevice which you mine through. On the other side you see an old elf. She is asleep and has an exoskeleton made from runite. It is damaged and needs repairing. You use a runite bar to repair it and she awakens. You say that Baxtorian sent you and that you need help in the fight against Lord Iorwerth. Enough time has passed for the Candentine to grow and it is ready to be harvested. The other ingredient needed is crystal dust. Baxtorian gives you an old crystal which you grind with a pestle and mortar. You add the Elder Candentine to a vial of water and then use the crushed crystal, making an inversion potion. Everyone is gathered to discuss the next step. As you now have everything needed to enter the crystal seed containing Prifddinas, and only one person can enter the crystal, they vote for you. You talk to Lord Amlod to teleport you into the Grand Library. You have to find the broken seal and discover the knowledge that Iorwerth had uncovered. You can also seek out the other 8 seals and break them as well, as this knowledge may be the key to fight against the darkness. Those who follow the light will be able to access Seren's knowledge. Inside you touch the seal of the Forgotten, and the memory of Seren appears. The knowledge from the broken seal was that within Seren there was darkness. It was sealed away in the Temple of Light. A prison within a prison safeguards that darkness, but there is a key, an orb of light which unlocks it, and the orb was hidden away. The shrine at Gorla is where it lies, and now there's a light puzzle. You place and rotate the mirrors to unlock the seal, and then touch the seal of Ithil, and the memory of Seren appears. A mystic called Kaidwad documented Seren's teachings in a book called the Kurdi. More knowledge can be found in the seals of Kadun. You collect crystals from the crystal dispenser and take the hand mirrors. After placing them correctly, you unlock the next seal. Kaidwad was Seren's closest friend, but elves were mortal and each death was like a knife to her heart. Next seal is of Chris. Seren shared the knowledge of the Song of Creation with the elves. Next is the seal of Amlod, which reveals that by extending the lives of the elves she had accidentally cursed them because when she went away it would cause them pain and sometimes even death. The seal of Myreque reveals that another god promised great power, so Seren took all the elves to journey with her. The next seal, of Hefin, says that they found a new home, a city made from crystal, but underneath it was a dark power, of which Seren thought that she could lift its curse. Unlocking the seal of Traherne reveals that after 1,000 years, deep beneath the mountains of their home, Seren found a source of deathly energy. She believed that the darkness would be the perfect counter to nullify the curse, but she was mistaken. The last seal, of Iorwerth, says that Seren is a being of light, but even within Seren there is darkness. The darkness was combined with the deathly energy that Seren found. Seren created a fragment of herself, one of darkness rather than light, and hoped that this would end the curse. The darkness turned on Seren and tried to destroy her, so she sealed it away. The fragment is what Lord Iorwerth is accidentally trying to summon. A meeting is called to discuss what's been discovered. Seren's last attempt to allow the elves to live was to shatter herself into many crystals, and this is what all the elves carry with them, which explains why they don't die or suffer. You mentioned the orb, which is the key for the Temple of Light in Gorla. Baxtorian says that Gorla is an old shrine to Seren, north of Prifddinas. Everybody needs some time to themselves before convening at another meeting later. In the meantime, while you are exploring in the Grand Library, Baxtorian has managed to decipher 2 more clues left by Lord Chris and Lord Hefin, so you can go find them. Lord Chris, of the clan of woodcutters and farmers, left a clue that the trees of his home will call to him. Lord Hefin, of the clan of the religious leaders of the elves, left a clue that she would walk across the water to the south. At the poison swamp, you jump over some stepping stones and find Lady Hefin. You say that she is needed in the village of Letya and she will go there at once. In the forest, you pass a stick trap and get to a lake. You see a tree which you try to chop. This is Lord Chris. You say that Baxtorian sent you to find him, and he knows that it's time to uproot and he will head to Letya at once. Another meeting is called, with many of the elders attending. Yisgwin has returned from Gorla trying to find the orb, but the shrine was empty. He thinks that the orb is at Lord Iorwerth's camp, and when scouting there he discovered that Lord Iorwerth already knows that you've been to the Grand Library. Assuming that he will soon discover the dwarven mines that led to the Temple of Light, they're going to make sure that the tunnel is secure while you go to Lord Iorwerth's camp. Arianwin wasn't able to attend the meeting. Apparently he wasn't feeling well. Ysgwyn does not share his methods of how he managed to spy the information from Lord Iorwerth. You enter the cave at his camp, and one of the archers and warriors start to attack you. After you defeat both of them, you loot the chest and find the orb. Baxtorian will look after it. Instead of calling a meeting to say that the orb's been found, he's going to keep it on the low as he fears that the group has been fractured with the recent news of Seren, and some of the elders want to take matters into their own hands. Either way, they want to prevent Iorwerth's forces from succeeding. Ysgwyn has been distant and Baxtorian doubts his loyalty. He would like you to find him. Elena did see him leave recently, but she doesn't know in which direction he went, so she suggests that you find his trial. You inspect the rocks and other signs and find the footsteps, following them until you get to him. He is talking to the head of research for Lord Iorwerth, Iestyn Edun. It turns out that he was Ysgwyn's informant. Iestyn didn't want the other elves to know because they might have misunderstood and imprisoned him, so it was safer for Ysgwyn to keep the information to himself. Iestyn says that there's a traitor amongst the rebels and that they told Lord Iorwerth how to find the village of Letya. They're going to launch their assault soon, so you all head back. You and Elena are going to help the citizens while Ysgwyn is going to look for the orb. You help Morph find her children. Inside the house you search under the table to find Eoin, and in some cooking pots to find Iona. Lord Iorwerth appears. Elena will get the citizens to safety while you deal with him. He asks for the orb and he'll withdraw his forces, leaving them in peace. Arianwin has been convinced by Lord Iorwerth that he's not the enemy, and they're convinced that they are freeing Seren. When Iorwerth learned how to free her, he disobeyed his mother, who was the ruler of the clan, and in fact killed her to be the new head of the clan. He puts Eoin in front of him and says that if Baxtorian doesn't give the orb, he will kill the boy. Baxtorian gives the orb to save the boy's life, and Ysgwyn is killed. You chase after them and confront Arianwin. You explain that they're not actually trying to free Seren, but instead the fragment of her dark side. You ask him to let you pass and chase Lord Iorwerth, but he doesn't let you, so you have to fight him. Right before he is defeated, he manages to escape. Mourning for Ysgwyn, Baxtorian now admits that when he was returning from his kingdom in the east, after Lord Iorwerth took Prifddinas, he kept sending his soldiers, but they kept dying to Iorwerth's forces, as they had the fortified walls of the city. Most of his people died, and Glariel was taken from him. When they were finally able to find out where she was, he sent all his soldiers to save her, but it was a trap. So then he sealed himself away, in the hopes that she would come and find him one day. Isilwyn is sad because his mother Erlis died in that war. He's going to the underground pass and he intends to fight. You say that the dwarves may be able to seal the tunnel, and that this would stop the Iorwerth forces from getting there. Before doing so, you find the last two clan elders. One of the clan elders passed away, but their descendants can be found, and if you can get in contact with the new king of Ardoin, he may be willing to also help. Lady Ithel of the clan of builders and architects left a clue that she put her soul into her greatest work. This village of Letya was her final and finest contribution to the people. Lady Myla of the clan of scientists and explorers left a clue to follow the scrolls to find her. Baxtorian hands you a clue scroll. You go around Letya finding symbols on the walls. Every symbol fills your mind with a bit more knowledge. When you get the fifth bit of knowledge, you learn that a statue is to be built in the middle of Letya, requiring 8 limestone bricks. When you build the statue, Lady Kellen Ithel regains all of her knowledge. It turns out that she is the closest living relative of Lady Ithel, and she is happy to help at the underground pass. The first step of the clue are some coordinates. Then you find the second step in Zolandra. The next step is an anagram, and just outside the city gates of Prifddinas you dig and find another clue. Lastly, you spin outside the western entry of the underground pass with nothing equipped and see Lady Fion Myla. Everyone is now headed to the dwarven camp in the underground pass. You get there and see that it's been reinforced, and you talk to Baxtorian. General Heining has given the full support of the Tyrus forces, but the King of Ardoin does not wish to assist. You find out by talking to Elena that there's something that you can do to fortify the defences. Some of the alcohol that the dwarves have brewed is highly flammable. Elena mixed it with some chemicals to make it quite explosive. You load these into holes outside the camp, and with this final prep in place you get ready to defend the fort and buy some time for the dwarves to seal up the mine. Lord Iorwerth would like to meet you and Baxtorian to have a final discussion before any fighting. Even though Lord Iorwerth is aware of what you discovered in the library, he still thinks that there's a chance to free Seren in the Temple of Light, and because you will not back down, he has no option but to attack. Once you successfully defend the fortress for 4 minutes, Esselt appears and gravely harms Elena. While you deal with him, Baxtorian chases Lord Iorwerth and Arianwyn, who made it to the crystal. You defeat Esselt. Baxtorian tries to reason and say that this is not the Seren that they knew. Arianwyn also thinks that this isn't Seren, but Lord Iorwerth doesn't care anyway, and right as he unfreezes evil Seren, Arianwyn shoots him. The fragment of Seren is in pain and fights you. She does 4 attacks, one that teleports you towards her, which you have to run away from to avoid melee damage. Then she splits into a darker and lighter version, of which you have to attack the lighter version. Then she summons healers, which you have to quickly defeat. And finally she does an attack that puts you on the spot and deals massive damage. As the fight progresses, she spawns more healers. Quick tip in case you have low stats like me, use the Phoenix Necklace method, it's worth learning. After defeating Seren, Lord Iorwerth is shocked by what you have done and is still convinced that she was innocent but just confused and needed time to overcome her pain. Now that she's gone, Iorwerth feels that the last hope for the elves is gone too, and with that he draws his last breath and dies. Arianwyn feels guilty that a lot of people have died because of him, but you remind him that many more would have perished if you hadn't stopped Lord Iorwerth. And although you both recognise that it was not Seren, but a demented fragment of her, at least her pain has now ended. Arianwyn does imagine how things could have been if they were different. And he doesn't feel like he can stay with the elves any longer, so he's going to leave and explore the world. You bid each other farewell. Baxtorian and Elena greet you at the gates of Prifddinas, which has been rebuilt, as well as Lectia, but you express confusion as you can't see Prifddinas at all. Baxtorian says that this is one of the security measures that were put in place during the God Wars. From the outside, it looks like there's nothing there. Baxtorian and the other elders have come to an agreement to allow outsiders to visit. They've been afraid and mistrusting for too long. You and Elena are the first ones with the honour of visiting the city. Elena is going to move in as she has a lot to learn from the elves. Baxtorian and the elders have realised that there shouldn't be a singular elf ruler nor a gang of leaders, and will explore different options of governance. You are rewarded with access to Prifddinas and 40,000 XP in agility, construction, farming, herb lore, hunter, mining, smithing and woodcutting. Desert Treasure II. To start this quest you must have completed Below Ice Mountain, the mini-quest His Faithful Servants, the Garden of Death, Temple of the Eye, Inakra's Lament, Secrets of the North and Desert Treasure I. You feel the energy of ancient magic radiating from this door of an ancient vault on the southern hill of the Uza Oasis. As you approach, the ancient symbol starts to glow. You enter the tomb with 4 statues and Asgania Smith appears. He is still looking for more treasure, and he felt that the last treasure hunt with you was pointless. But after he uncovered this tomb and was unable to open the door, you explained to him that you were only able to open it because of the ancient magic abilities you learned from the last adventure. You inspect the 4 statues. They are the Whisperer, Vardorvis, Passeria and Sucellus. You also inspect the plaque on the eastern wall. It says, "The mighty treasures of the Empty Lord are bound in this vault. His faithful servants protect this safe." Asgania Smith concludes that you have to look for the pieces that the statues are holding. You explain that the only clues you have are 4 names, and that you won't be able to find any individuals with these names, as they are from the Zeroshan, or the Second Age. But Asgania believes that Terry Bolando at the dig site might have some more information for you, so you speak to him and say that you found an interesting Zeroshan vault, but he doesn't think he can help you, by making the point that you might know more about the Zeroshan Empire than he does. Coincidentally, there's been a new arrival at the dig site who claims to be a Zeroshan expert, Dr. Banneken. At the easternmost point in the dig site, you climb down a winch and find him. For some reason, you feel like he's familiar, though he insists you haven't met before. You say that it's quite a coincidence that an expert on the topics of Zaros appeared at the dig site very soon after Zaros' discovery in the first place. Anyway, you tell him the 4 names, Vardorvis, Passeria, Sucellus, and Whisperer. He asks you what you know about the Empire of Zaros, and you explain that his most trusted general, Zamorak, overthrew him and became a god in the process. Dr. Banneken thinks this could have quite possibly been the singular, most pivotal moment in all of Gielinor's history. What Dr. Banneken wants to know is, what happened to the Empire following Xaros' defeat? Seniston, which is just under the dig site, is believed to have been the capital of this empire. Dr. Banneken thinks that a military installation is here, under the dig site, and it could possibly have information on the forenames that you found. He expects that this information would be protected against falling into the hands of anyone that they wouldn't want to know, predicting for there to be some form of defense. You're up for a challenge. Dr. Banneken thinks that he's on the last steps of discovering more ancient ruins of this city, and you say, alright, so what do we need to explode? Which confuses him, and then you explain that you found the Xarosian temple under the dig site by causing a massive explosion, at which point he is annoyed that you risk the structural integrity of that ancient temple by blowing it up, so he insists that you just use a pickaxe this time and carefully clear away the rocks. You discover a hole and ask Dr. Banneken to stay behind while you check to see if it's safe to go down. An ancient guardian appears and starts attacking you. It has an ancient shield which you have to attack through with melee, and every few attacks rocks start falling from the ceiling which you avoid. After you defeat it, it's safe for Dr. Banneken to come out. So now he says you should take a look around. Another golem appears, but in the form of a machine. It has an 8x8 grid of slots and requires 8 cells to achieve the correct power level. You take 8 uncharged cells from the crate and find a room with an altar and 4 statues of ice, smoke, shadow and blood. You cast a magic burst spell on the corresponding statues, and the altar gives off a magical energy which imbues your cells into charged ones. You place the cells into the grid so that there's 1 in each section, 1 in each row, and only 1 per column, with no 2 of them being adjacent to each other. The golem machine now asks you for your search terms, so you search Vardorvis, Perseria, Sucellus, and the Whisperer. Vardorvis was of the vampire race and was last seen travelling west in pursuit of a high-value target named Yonrith Lovakenge. Dr. Banneken knows a girl named Alyssa who did research on the Lovakenge area. Perseria was of the Siren race, and her ship was lost to the Abyss in the battle for the Eye. You explain that you're familiar with the ancient rift of the Eye. Sucellus took command of the remaining forces of the Holy Empire and was last seen at the Gorok prison. You say that you know of a dungeon underwise where this could be. And the Whisperer was also a Siren, last stationed at Lassar when the fortress fell. Lassar was an old Xarosian fortress that was built on top of the Ice Mountain, and you explain that though it's not there any longer, underneath is Cam de Zal, and the golem here looks very similar to the ones you've encountered there. Dr. Banneken then uses the machine to look for some information, and now he'll need to consult a friend who is far away, so he departs. You ask the golem to repeat the last search, which was of the Frostenhorn, last seen in Seniston, and was removed by unknown individuals. Climbing back up to the surface, you speak to Alyssa, who explains that there's an ancient monument in Lovakenge called the Burning Man, which represents the defeat of an ancient evil thousands of years ago, long before the formation of the Great Korend Empire. Near the Burning Man, a dwarf named Barris explains that it's a pyre to remember the brave leader that was able to help the dwarves overcome the evil that came from the Stranglewood, which is a cursed place that most people never return from, if they ever risk going. A chap from Hasidius went missing not too long ago, and Barris thinks he went to the Stranglewood. The chap lived just south of the Hasidius estate agent, so you visit the house and search the desk to find a strange potion and a note. It's researching samples from the Stranglewood. Whilst it doesn't fully protect from the infection, at least it provides some defense against the strangler parasite. The man then took a small boat from Quidamortum. Before you board that small rowboat, you drink the strange potion and go to the Stranglewood. You run into the city and get chased and attacked by the infected Strangled along the way. As you climb into a temple, you step on some tendrils and Cassandre appears. He insists that you know who he is, but you're confused. He thinks you've been following him into the old ruins from the Garden of Death quest, but you say that you're not interested in the magic of the old ones and that you just happened to stumble upon his campsite, so you weren't intentionally following him. You explain that you're just looking for someone called Vardorvis, but Cassandre doesn't believe that this is all just a coincidence. He can hear the Strangled approaching and asks if you disturbed any of the tendrils on your way in, which you did. So now you've got to go downstairs to defend Cassandre against waves of them for a few minutes. By unlocking stone chests with lockpicks, you get some barricades which you build and use explosions, also freezing and defeating Strangled as they approach, surviving long enough until the horde begins to retreat. It's now safe to head back up. Even though you've defeated Cassandre, he still doesn't trust you. He knows that the old ones discovered soul transference. An obvious reason for why he's interested in that is because he's dying. Unfortunately, the Ancient Ones created a sort of parasite known as a Strangler. It was supposed to play a role in the soul transference rituals, but it instead destroyed the people. The potion that you drank can be made more strong with the ingredients found here, which should provide immunity against the Strangler infection. There's a herb growing atop the cliff northwest of the temple, and there are some berries in the old camp to the southwest. The Strangled tend to attack all together, so it's best to avoid them. Kasson says there are stink bombs in the chests which will help to distract them, and you shouldn't step on the tendrils because it works like a network that would attract them. Throughout Stranglewood, you can find tatty pages that detail an expedition led by the axe-wielding vampire Carnifex Maximus. The expedition was exploring the strange land with mysterious ruins. They discovered a deadly parasite that infected the leader, and after an attack by some dwarves, his head was cut off. The rest of the crew slowly became more infected, but the leader suffered the strangest effects. There are shrines here that give you a stamina effect. Entering a large pyramid, Kasson is being attacked by 2 Strangled and he got bitten by 1. He had a disease anyway, so it doesn't make a big difference. He went to every healer, mage and priest, but none could cure him. He believes that the Old Ones are his last hope to stay alive. He gives you the unfinished potion, and you add the Corbel herb and the Argium berries to it, making the Strangler Serum. You're now as protected as you can be against the Strangled, and you can also unlock a secret entry which acts as a shortcut to get to Vardorvis. His attacks are some swinging axes that fly across a 3x3 grid area, homing spikes from the ground which you have to avoid, Vardorvis' head projectile which you need to pray ranged against, and virus cells appear on your screen which you have to quickly click. His damage and speed increases as his health lowers. When you defeat Vardorvis, you get a temple key. You return to the pyramid now, and Kasson grabs an item, now saying that he needs to go back to Kourend. Although you warn him that he can't go there because he is infected and he would put the lives of everyone in Gielinor at risk. He says that he will go no matter what, and you say you cannot step aside to let him do that, so you fight, avoiding his potions and explosion attack by running around the columns. Kasson is defeated, and now he's dying, believing that he only needed more time. He says that at the ritual site you won't find what you were looking for because Kasson had it all along. He wasn't sure that you would have helped him if he had given it to you straight away. The medallion is in a chest back at his hideout, and then he passes away. With your first medallion, you make your way back to the temple and see a mysterious figure. They want your medallion, but you don't want to cooperate with them, so they say that they'll meet you later. You put the medallion on the Vardorvis statue, and that is 1 out of 4 complete. Next you make your way to the rift. The Catalytic Guardian explains that a signal has been detected from the abyss in the scar, so you enter and there are demons fighting each other. After you defeat all the monsters, you cross the stepping stones and see a rowboat that you're about to travel on, but before you do, Wizard Preston appears, and she says that it's a good thing that she found you before you got on the boat, because it would have taken you to the Leviathan and you would have become fish food. Preston shows you the base camp she set up and says that it was her who sent the magic signal, because she needed help in defeating the Leviathan. Past the Leviathan, in the Lake of Goo, there is an old ship that contains something that she needs. You ask if the name Passeria means anything, and Preston says that it's Passeria's ship that she's trying to reach. The Leviathan has a weak spot on its back, a gap in its scales. A circular island near Passeria's ship can be used to trap the Leviathan. You're going to have to use a smoke spell to stun and defeat it, but beforehand, many ships from Passeria's fleet need to be set on fire to weaken the Leviathan's power. Down in the tunnels, of which there are 3, you need to complete puzzles. You ask what Wizard Preston wanted to do with Passeria's ship, and she says that she was just looking for information to help with her research. Another shipwreck down here suggested that Passeria was experimenting with teleportation magic, which Wizard Preston is an expert in. The creatures and demons down here are forming rituals, and it seems they're trying to harness the magic of the abyss for themselves. In the first tunnel, demons attack you with melee. For the first puzzle, you hit different axons until they reach their terminals whilst avoiding lightning. This disturbs a part of the scar, and once all 3 puzzles in one area have been completed, you can move on to another. In the second puzzle, an underwater section, you grab different nerves representing basic runes. You combine them and then place them on nerve endings and replenish the oxygen in the air bubbles. Combining the basic runes makes combination runes. Completing this further disturbs this level of the scar. Throughout the scar you find gooey notes telling the story of 4 followers of Saradomin and 1 former Zerosian, who find themselves trapped in the nightmarish abyss, where they face horrific creatures and come to the shocking realization that they are inside a living entity. The abyss is not just a realm used for teleportation. In the third puzzle room you attack the scarred imps. With the imps down, you can attack the lesser demons, and with this the final challenge is complete, and you fully disturb this level of the scar. You search a skeleton and find a slimy key, and in another one you find a handful of gunpowder. The slimy key opens a chest which gives you an old tablet that talks about vessels preparing for battle and 2 artifacts called Imperium and Primus. They're trying to locate it, but with resistance from Saradomin's forces. With that, you burn the remains of the ship and the scar spits you out. Preston has opened a second tunnel, and you mentioned Imperium and Primus artifacts. She thinks they are code names. Primus was defended by Saradomians, and the battle didn't go as expected, which is how they ended up here. She thinks Primus must have been the Stone of Jas. You point out that she knows a lot more than she's letting on, and she admits that she has heard of the Eye of Saradomin, also known as the Fist of Guthix, but more accurately known as the Stone of Jas. Not only could it bring great power, it could also bring great destruction, as it had done to all those who possessed it in the past, and this matches what you had realised when you first touched the stone in the Temple of the Eye quest. Preston says she's more interested in Imperium, thinking it might be connected to the stone, as it's often referred to alongside it. It might have a similar power. The next area is filled with smoke, and the demons here throw rocks. In the next puzzle room, you take lights from the leeches and repair the damaged groves. When you have fully lit the room, there are energies that you can touch. You have to click these 6 rune energies in the right order while the leeches are attacking you, and once you get it correct, the leeches die and this level of the abyss has been disturbed. The next puzzle has a catalyst showing different runes and combinations of them. You have to use the nerves on the catalyst to damage the leeches. Once they're defeated, you can leave the passage and continue. In the last puzzle room, you've got power finders, which you need to be stepping within their radius. The red ones are pulled and the blue ones are pushed, and when you make it to the end of the room, you destroy the abyssal growth, fully disturbing this level of the scar. You now similarly make your way to another ship, search skeleton to find gunpowder again, another to find a slimy key, open the chest with another tablet, and inspect it. It says that one of the guards interacted with the Imperium. He entered a frenzied state, killing 4 others before he was executed. You make your way back and tell Wizard Preston about this. She opens the final tunnel. It does seem that the Imperium might be taking control over those who interact with it. Whether the person who touches it is doing their own will or the artifacts is still unknown. Mind control is already difficult, and normally only happens from a skilled wizard on one person at a time, and the spell is easily broken, but maybe the Imperium can allow for the control of hundreds or even thousands with no way to break that control. You enter the area of the scar filled with smoke. Here the demons attack with magic. Then another light puzzle with a random order. Once you turn all the lights on, you complete the room, disturbing the first part of this level of the scar. In the next puzzle room, you have to defend the antibodies who are healing the pillar, so you must defeat the creatures that come to attack. Once the fleshy pillar has been restored, the scar has been further disturbed. For the final puzzle, you collect illuminating lures, you light damaged growths, and then repair the crimson and radiant veins using the fibers from the Sanguisferus. With that, you have fully disturbed the scar. One last time, you search the skeleton for a key and gunpowder, you open the chest and read the final note. It says that the Imperium was safely secured and is on the voyage home, where they will celebrate the now guaranteed future of the Empire. The last ship is burnt, and you speak to Wizard Preston. She was talking to herself, saying that as she was so distracted with the stone, she failed to consider if there was another option. But now she sees that you're back. She says that all the smoke forced the Leviathan to return to its island. Preston says that casting a shadow spell on it should do the trick to stun it. Somehow she can tell that you must know a thing or two about ancient magics. Now you travel on the rowboat to attack the Leviathan. Blue orbs are magic, green orbs are ranged, and orange orbs are melee. Shadows appear where the rocks are falling, and you have to step away from these. The Leviathan also causes a lightning barrage, or a boulder rain, followed by a smoke blast, which you can avoid by standing behind the boulders from the rain. At 20% health, the Leviathan enters an enraged phase, and you have to stand in the moving Abyssal Pathfinder to avoid constant chip damage. In the fight, you can also stun the Leviathan with a shadow attack and then attack it on its back to deal big damage. Once you've defeated the Leviathan, you can climb down the handholds and jump across the skipping stones. Preston joins you as you find the debris of Perseria's ship. It turns out that the Imperium was never delivered to the east and that Perseria had kept it. The message that was suggesting otherwise was only to throw their enemies off course. Preston is going to stick around to see if she can discover any more about the Imperium. She's not ready to face the wizards from the Wizard's Tower just yet, so she'd prefer if you don't tell Cedrador anything just yet. In the debris you find a medallion. With this you make your way back to the chamber and place it on the statue. Now you make your way to Weiss and try to enter the Gorok prison. Some of Khazad's warriors are defending the door and they try to stop you from going in. You explain that if there was a high chance of you dying anyway by going in, wouldn't that be beneficial to General Khazad? And so thinking twice about it, they do decide to let you in. Running north in the prison, you immediately get teleported into a cell, and later awaken with all of your items gone. There's a hole in the wall and you inspect it. A mysterious voice speaks to you, saying that he was working with General Khazad, and he stuck his nose in the wrong place, so he's gotten stuck here. You plan to escape together, and he asks if you can find anything useful in your prison cell. In the skeleton you find a prisoner's letter, saying that it seems that the God Wars are over, but the Duke is not letting them leave because he wants to put preparations in place. To rebel, this prisoner wants to help the other prisoners escape, and they need to work together to do so. A hint is in the bucket. When you search it, you find a knife, which you pass to the mysterious voice through the wall, and then he hands you a chisel. You find a loose slab of stone, and use the chisel to pry it open to find a lockpick. You pass this to the mysterious voice, who frees himself and you as well. It turns out that he was the assassin from the previous quests. He says he's looking for General Khazad, and you explain that you're looking for Sucellus, believing that there may be an asylum area here to explore. In a prison cell on the opposite side of the one you were in, all your items are being stored, and so is the assassin's weapon. With the Majorat Jalan around, you'll need to work together to get your items back. The assassin will look for the asylum while you try to find a way to get your items back. You go through the dungeon until you find a refugee camp. A letter on the altar says that the Duke has convinced himself that he can restore the Empire, but unfortunately it will come at the cost of everyone in the dungeon's life. There are also hints in the letter. In the corner there's a chest. To unlock it, using the hint of light, you input the password 214013, which corresponds to the number of candles on the candle stands here. And in the chest you find a sapphire key. In another corner you find a crate with some rations that heal you and give you a stamina effect. Searching a skeleton, you find a protest note saying that the prisoners want to peacefully leave the prison. The second hint is to go to the most northwestern part of the dungeon, where you find a room filled with 25 chests. You open one that has the word vials on it, and enter the password lies, unlocking the emerald key. Now running through the dungeon, Jalan may appear, casting magic spells on you. You unblock a crevice to make it accessible from the other side. Then with the emerald key you unlock a room that has 7 beds. In the most southeastern chest you click up, right, left, down, right and up, finding the ruby key. In another prison cell you find another chest and spell the word Wrath to find a diamond key. You go back to the main block and talk to the assassin. Before you hand him the diamond key, you ask him what he's actually here for, and he says he's looking for the Frostenhorn. The assassin doesn't know what it does, but that's why he's been paid to recover from this place. The person who paid him was also the one who told him to steal from Entrana. He also stole the crest from the Carnelian mansion and framed it on the Hazil cult. You then get the cells open to retrieve your inventory and also the assassin's bowsword. He thinks that Jalan has to be dealt with before you can make it to the asylum, so he suggests trapping him somewhere where you can distract him, and then the assassin can take him unaware. He suggests the old refugee camp. The assassin places some firecrackers here, which you light to draw Jalan's attention, and then you run around the room, praying mage, whilst killing the illusions he spawns to avoid taking chip damage, and after distracting Jalan for long enough, the assassin swiftly deals a fatal blow. Now he's going to search for the Frostenhorn while you deal with the Duke. You pick up a pickaxe and a pestle and mortar, and avoid the gazes from the eyes in the walls. You get the Ardor and Musket mushrooms, which you grind and then put into some barrels. You mine the salt, which you also add, to obtain 2 Ardor Musket potions. You use these on the Duke to begin the fight. You avoid his arm slams, the acid clouds, and try to avoid his open eye gaze. You also keep near him so he doesn't attack you with mage. When you defeat the Duke, you get an odd key. You use this to unlock the gate near the Duke's room, and you see the assassin, who says he's not found the Frostenhorn here. He claims that he is no longer needed unless his employer discovers the true location of the horn, so his work here is done. In the corner, you search a chest finding another medallion. When you travel with the medallion in your inventory, the mysterious figure may try to attack you. Next you go to the Ice Mountain and enter the ruins of Cam Dazal. You talk to an Imcamdo dwarf named Romano. You ask if any archaeologists happen to have been about, and he says there is one near the bank chest. You talk to Prescott and ask if he knows anything about the old fortress named Lassar that used to stand on the Ice Mountain. He says he found an unusual icon in the shape of a hand, and that on the western side of the ruins there is a big sinkhole. And while he thinks he must have been imagining it, he feels pretty certain that he heard a voice coming from it. You would need a very long rope tied to a rock if you were brave enough to go down so he hands you a bundle of very long rope. You attach it to a rock and climb down, whilst hearing a voice urging you to come down into the depths. This is the Lassar Undercity. You appear in a strange throne room and find teleporters that you can activate. Throughout the city there are strange pools that you can drink from, restoring your run energy and giving you a stamina effect. In the most northwestern building of the Science District, you find a shadow blocker schematic and also a green shadow key. In the building south you find a purple shadow key which you also take, but as you climb down some steps to walk out onto some still water, you get dizzy and pass out. You awaken in front of an Encanto dwarf named Kettler. She says that your life was almost lost, explaining that there's a creature in the water that wants everyone's soul, and the longer you spend down here, the more you hear the voices calling for you to try to save the other souls that have already been stolen. She explains that your ring of visibility doesn't work here. While the ring can see shadows, it is not of the shadows. She has a shard from a totem that can allow you to actually enter the Shadow Realm completely, the Blackstone Fragment. To have any chance of fighting the Whisperer, you'll need to destroy the Shadow Totem. If you can find old schematics, Kettler will be able to create tools, such as a fire that works in Shadow Realm, different to the normal fire that wouldn't work there. You ask why Kettler is down here. She explains that long ago, when the barbarians attacked the dwarves, instead of helping by fighting along, she hid down here and is now paying the price for her choice. This Shadow City is a place where magic and science were practiced in equal measure in the age of the Lassar, but when the people here started studying the totem, they doomed the city. You show her the schematic you found, and she crafts the items from it, which you pick up from the workbench, obtaining a shadow blocker. In the building with furnaces in the Science District, you place the shadow blocker next to the door, and then you use the Blackstone Fragment to enter the Shadow Realm via the Dark Puddle. In this realm you will slowly go insane over time, especially when attacked by the shadows, so being next to the shadow blocker provides you immunity while you picklock the door. Unlocking the door you get the basic Shadow Torch schematic, and you can activate the Blackstone Fragment to leave the Shadow Realm, and also use a recall function on it to get your shadow blocker back. Bringing the new schematic to Kettler, she works on crafting a shadow torch. It can destroy what lurks near it. With this, you destroy the shadow tentacles that are in front of doors when you are in the Shadow Realm, allowing you to be able to pass the invisible force in the overworld. You grab a revitalizing idol schematic. This can be used to give you more sanity whilst in the Shadow Realm. You place the revitalizing idol near the eastern teleporter and make use of it to keep running north until you find the tentacles in front of the door. You now have access to the house with the blue shadow key. Next to the pub, in the residential district, you place a shadow blocker next to the entrance. Again, you picklock these doors with the safety of the shadow blocker next to you, and you pick up the superior shadow torch schematic. You find an anima portal schematic too, which gives the shadows something to hunt instead of you. Strategically placing all of the items, you run past many lost souls who quickly drain your sanity. You use the revitalizing idol to restore it, and whilst having the anima portal distract all the lost souls, you light the 4 braziers around the chest and stand next to the shadow blocker to be able to open it, finding the final schematic, the perfected shadow torch. Unfortunately, this schematic is a fake, as marked by the black hand of the silent choir. They undid the work of those who tried to resist the darkness. Throughout the city, you can find remnants, which show flashbacks of conversations, telling a tale that hints at impeding conflict, sacrificial research, and the potential manipulation of souls through the shadow totem. The silent choir used to have meetings at the cathedral often, but if they were hiding something, they'd probably do it in plain sight. They were also seen hanging out at the pub a lot, so you go into the pub, through the Shadow Realm, and go upstairs to find a remnant. It's in the cistern below the city that they gather. They promise the scared child that he'll be able to join the choir of 1,000 voices singing silently. They have to keep the icon close to them, because it marks them as one of the chosen. Without it, the child is forsaken. You pick up one more shadow key, a red one this time, and next to a chest you place a shadow blocker. You find a strange icon on the inside, but it's broken in 2 segments. You find a second part, and then combine them into one. Lastly, you enter the drain, and raise the icon towards the gate. You hear it unlocking, and you're able to get in. You see a strange pillar, which the voices were talking about in the remnants. You inspect it, and suddenly multiple shadow clone versions of you appear, confusing you into a nightmare. Kettler found you in the nick of time and destroyed the totem, which weakened the influence of the shadow so it cannot spread beyond the city. Kettler also found a missing schematic and has prepared a new tool. She warns you that something lurks in the cathedral. Now that you have a perfected shadow torch, you are able to destroy the wall of tentacles leading there. When you run towards the cathedral area, the Whisperer appears. It attacks with magic and range in different patterns along the fight, and tentacles appear which you have to avoid lest you go insane. When she does special attacks, you have to activate the Blackstone Fragment and go to the Shadow Realm. One special is a free wave attack destroying pillars of different health, another Swan Souls that will either damage you, damage her, heal her, or restore your sanity, and another special requires you to step on all the light orbs. The less time you spend in the Shadow Realm and the less hits you take, the less you go insane. After the special, she casts a free spell on you and approaches, and if she gets near she will do melee damage, so you should freeze her to avoid this. In the enrage phase, you need to avoid the constant tentacles. When you defeat the Whisperer, you search its entrails and find the final medallion. You make your way back to the temple but are knocked out before you can go through the door. You awaken again in a cell, finding a hair clip and unlocking the gate to find a chest with your gear in it. You inspect the altar and a mysterious figure appears. Every 3 attacks it switch prayers. Defeating the strange figure, you get your Whisperer medallion back. You make your way to the tomb one last time. Ascania Smith thinks that you're going to steal the treasure all for yourself, but you're not, and you tell him it's a bad idea to place the last medallion until you understand what's going on. He throws a smoke bomb at you to stun you and steals the medallion, placing it, and some stairs are revealed. Here you find the Frosten Horn. Behind you and Ascania you hear a mysterious voice describing how powerful the artifact is. Dr. Banniken was the one talking, but it turns out that he is actually Azanadra. And it's not Frosten Horn, it's actually a relic that predates the gods themselves, known as the Elder Horn, which grants control over entire armies. It was also known as Imperium, and your adventures with Berseria helped to discover that there was a second one which was a fake, used to hide a real one. Then Haziel appears and informs Azanadra that the Frosten Horn was destroyed while you were inside Gorok prison, prompting Inakra and Akthanikos to appear as well. They were biding their time until the tomb was unlocked so that they could get the Elder Horn. Inakra's hiring of the assassin didn't work as he wanted because he didn't retrieve any of the medallions. Meanwhile, General Khazad was busy attending to business in the north, and whilst there appears to only be 2 Zeroshan versus 2 Zamorakian here, they could all sense that a 5th Majorat was here also. Slisk the Serpent reveals himself and shows that he was Wizard Preston, the assassin, Kettler, and Cassandre all along. He took over each of their lives and used them to manipulate you to open the vault, and whilst he could have gotten the medallions himself, he was actually just testing you this whole time, to see if you were worthy. Slisk wants to work with all the Majorat together, not just using the horn for himself, but for all of them to finally be free. A final ritual of the Majorat. But the others disagree, and think they can take Slisk out, but he summons an army of Barros brothers, which the Majorat start fighting. You try to stop Slisk, but then he also spawns some undead versions of all the disguises he took. First the assassin, who you have to attack in his own smoke. Then Kettler, who makes clones of herself, which you have to quickly defeat, and sometimes hide behind to avoid taking big damage. Cassandre similarly uses potions that leave pools dealing a lot of damage, and a massive explosion attack that fills 3/4 of the room. Lastly Preston, who attacks with massive lightning and spawns 2 portals releasing leeches, which deal massive chip damage unless you kill or avoid them. Whilst you were distracted fighting those clones, Slisk takes the Elder Horn and says that you will be a worthy vessel. He will see you in the north, where General Khazad is at the moment. The other Majorat will see Shudder in the final ritual too. While Slisk used to serve Azanadra now recognises that Slisk only serves himself. And whilst Azanadra doesn't want to work with the Zamorakians, it may be his only option to stop Slisk. He apologises to you, because even though he has many followers, it was you who managed to free him, and as he was so preoccupied with allegiances, Slisk took advantage of that. The destruction of the Frosten Horn must have been Slisk's doing as well as the destruction of the artifact on Entrana, as he is the true believer of the will of the Empty Lord. The ritual of the Majorat is fast approaching, as Nadra wants to ensure that preparations are made, so he gives you a gift. Your Ring of Visibility is upgraded into a Ring of Shadows. You are rewarded with 3 Ancient Lamps with 100,000 XP each for combat skills, and the ability to use Ancient Rings to gain access to 4 new bosses. Plus you get 5 quest points, which at the time would have given you a total of 300. Thank you for watching the Season 7 compilation. We're now only 1 season away from completing every quest in the game. So join me for the beginning of Season 8, where I start with Children of the Sun.